Chapter 2147. You still dare to be arrogant with us? Smash, smash it. Chase them out of Sky Dragon City. Everyone was furious. They picked up the stones and threw them at the courtyard. Not long later, the courtyard was completely unrecognizable and was extremely chaotic. Inside the house, Feng Wenhai stood in front of the window, looking at the scene through the gap, his hands tightly clenched together. Father. Feng Zihan appeared behind him. Feng Wenhai said angrily, "What exactly is going on?" Feng Zihan said, "As far as I know, it was young noble Feng who betrayed us. That damned little bastard. I told you, he can't be trusted, but you just had to believe him. Now look at it." Feng Wenhai roared. At this point, is there any point in saying all this? Feng Zihan sighed. Feng Wenhai asked, "Where's your mother?" "Dead. They're all dead." Feng Zihan lowered his head as he spoke, his brow filled with sorrow that could not be dissolved. "She's really dead." Feng Wenhai's face turned pale, and his body swayed. Feng Zihan immediately went forward and supported Feng Wenhai. "Then where's her body?" Feng Wenhai asked. "It was taken away by Elder Yun." Feng Zihan said. "Where?" Feng Wenhai muttered. In extreme pain. "Is your grandfather okay?" "Not good. He's still kneeling in the discussion hall." Feng Zihan shook his head. "Why is this happening? Even if young noble Feng betrayed us, with Elder Yun and your grandfather's relationship, your mother wouldn't have been killed, right?" Feng Wenhai shouted. Feng Zihan said, "What exactly happened? I'm not sure either." The great clan elder had ordered Hua Yi's identity to be kept a secret, so no one dared to speak of it. Feng Wenhai, "You crazy bastard. Get out of Sky Dragon City."
Yes.
"Our Sky Dragon City can't tolerate scum like you." The curses outside continued. Rocks smashed into the courtyard, creating loud bangs. "These bastards, they're going too far." The furious Feng Wenhai immediately had a trace of hostility between his eyebrows. Feng Zihan immediately grabbed Feng Wenhai and said, "Father, don't be rash, you can't go out now. They've already bullied us at our doorstep, and you're still telling me not to go out? How am I supposed to face anyone in the future?" Feng Wenhai shouted. "Father." Feng Zihan immediately shouted coldly, "Don't you understand the current situation? Our Feng clan is now a target of scorn." Feng Wenhai said, "If I were still an enforcement hall elder, would they dare to be so arrogant? The point is, you are no longer one. Indeed, I cannot stay in Heavenly Dragon City any longer." Feng Zihan thought for a while and looked at Feng Wenhai. "Father, when I was at Longquan Mountain, I learned the profound meaning of becoming a god and built a small courtyard. You can go there and hide for a while." After that, he sent the coordinates to Feng Wenhai. "I'm not leaving. I don't believe that they would dare to kill me in broad daylight," Feng Wenhai said. But before he could finish his words, there was a poochie sound. Sharp arrows pierced through the windows and shot all over the room. Feng Zihan hurriedly brought Feng Wenhai away and said solemnly, "Did you see that? These people are completely crazy now. They're capable of doing anything. Bastard, bastard. I will kill them sooner or later." Feng Wenhai was infuriated. "Let's go," Feng Zihan said. Feng Wenhai's face was filled with unwillingness. "You must find young Master Feng for me. I will kill him with my own hands." "I will." Feng Zihan nodded. "And your mother? Go find Elder Yun. She is a member of our Feng clan. We cannot let her wander outside," Feng Wenhai said. And Feng Zihan nodded again. Feng Wenhai said again, "Tell me immediately if there is a situation." "Okay," Feng Zihan replied. "Zhang Haoyin, just you wait. Everything you have brought to me today, I will return it to you tenfold, 100-fold. Feng Wenhai's face was filled with hatred as he opened an altar and quickly left. Sigh. Feng Zihan looked at the battered building and let out a long sigh before opening an altar and leaving as well. "Smash, smash with all your might. We must chase them out of Heavenly Dragon City." The people outside were getting crazier and crazier and had already broken in. Just after Feng Zihan left, another figure appeared in the building. It was young Master Feng. Looking at the devastated room and the angry crowd outside, His expression was incomparably complicated. Following that, he did not stay, opening an altar and disappearing. At the same time, Treasure Pavilion, Shang Guanxiu sat in front of the desk. A guard stood respectfully in front of her, reporting the contents of the notice. Phew. After listening, Shang Guanxiu let out a long breath, shook her head and smiled. I was worried for nothing. Steward, why do you care so much about this Jiang Haoyan? Could it be that the rumors are true, that you two are lovers? The guard looked at Shang Guanxiu suspiciously. Lovers? Shang Guanxiu was stunned and frowned. There is such a rumor? And the guard nodded. Shang Guanxiu smiled helplessly and did not explain. She waved to the guard and said, You may leave. Yes. The guard responded respectfully and turned to leave. Lovers, Shang Guanxiu murmured, shook her head and sighed. Rumors are really fearful. Compared to the chaos outside, the cave abode number 1 of the first sacred peak was exceptionally peaceful. Qin Feiyang and the other 3 sat in the cave abode, drinking tea and chatting, looking extremely comfortable. Mu Tianyang smiled and said, Guess what will happen to the Feng family this time? It won't end well anyway, Wei said. Buzz. Before he finished speaking, Qin Feiyang's image crystal rang. Qin Feiyang took it out, and Gongzi Feng's image immediately appeared. What's wrong? Qin Feiyang was suspicious. Gongzi Feng said, I just went to the Feng family, and Feng Wenhai is no longer there. No longer there? The 4 of them were stunned, and there are many people outside. Listening to their scolding, Feng Wenhai should have been driven away by them. Gongzi Feng said, Haha, Mu Tianyang could not help but laugh. How pitiful. Madman sighed. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed slightly as he looked at Gongzi Feng and asked, Then do you know where he might have gone? I'm not sure about that. Gongzi Feng shook his head. Qin Feiyang said, You must find him and inform me immediately. Yes. Gongzi Feng nodded. Qin Feiyang turned off the image crystal and looked at Mu Tianyang with a smile. This Feng Wenhai, it's time to get rid of him. I knew you didn't have good intentions when you asked about Feng Wenhai's whereabouts. But now, do we have the strength to do so? Mu Tianyang said. Qin Feiyang turned to look at Madman and asked, Senior Brother Madman, what is Feng Wenhai's cultivation level? As a former law enforcement elder, how can his strength be weak? He's even stronger than me, Madman said. Mu Tianyang's heart trembled as he said in a deep voice, Then this is really not easy to deal with. What are you afraid of? Don't forget, we still have a heaven-defying divine artifact. Qin Feiyang sneered. That's true. Mu Tianyang was stunned for a moment before he smiled. But you, do you want to remove Feng Wenhai's control over you now? Qin Feiyang looked at Mu Tianyang and asked. Not now. Mu Tianyang waved his hand. Brother Mu, are you crazy? You've caused him so much trouble this time. Aren't you afraid that he will take revenge on you? Wei said in shock. You're the Vice Palace Master's disciple. With you backing me, how would he dare to take revenge on me? Besides, Yin Hui, Jin Yunchong, Jin Fatso, and Feng Zijuan were killed one after another. Feng Wenhai was expelled from Empyrean Palace. Gu Yong also betrayed him. Now, only Feng Zihan is left. But Feng Zihan also needs to cultivate. In other words, there's no one by his side to talk to. So, he will definitely not make a move against me. On the contrary, he might care more about me than before. Mu Tianyang smiled. Qin Feiyang asked suspiciously, Are you planning something again? What plan? Isn't it just going to the Sky Dragon Sea? Although these things have happened, we still have to go to the Sky Dragon Sea. Mu Tianyang said. Qin Feiyang nodded. Sky Dragon Sea? Wei was stunned and looked at the two suspiciously. Why are you going to the Sky Dragon Sea? Why didn't I know in advance? Mu Tianyang said, We didn't plan to call you. Is there a need for you to know? Fuck. Are we still buddies? Wei said angrily. These are 2 different things. We're going to the Sky Dragon Sea because of personal matters, and we don't want to implicate you. Qin Feiyang smiled. What you said is dignified, but there must be a conspiracy in the dark. Wei sneered. Qin Feiyang and Mu Tianyang looked at each other and couldn't help but smile bitterly. The next day, morning, Qin Feiyang trio went to the resource hall to work as usual. As for Lunatic, when he left last night, he actually told Qin Feiyang trio that he was going to cultivate in seclusion. This made the three of them stunned for a long time. But thinking about it, it made sense. He had already wasted 7,000 to 8,000 years of time, and it was indeed time to go into seclusion to cultivate. Junior brother Jiang, junior brother Mu, junior brother Hua, I'm really sorry. I misunderstood you 2 days ago. Yeah. I never thought that this was actually Yu Zijia, Yin Hui, and Jin Yunchang's conspiracy. You guys have been wronged. When Qin Feiyang trio entered the resource hall, the other people in the resource hall immediately rushed up and said with an apologetic face, "It's all in the past, it's okay." Qin Feiyang smiled. Hearing this, the others breathed a sigh of relief. After all, they all worked in the resource hall and would see each other frequently. They were afraid that Qin Feiyang trio would be unhappy. One of the young men asked, "Then how are you guys doing in the prison?" Qin Feiyang trio looked at each other and smiled. Hui smiled and said, "The treatment in the prison is really good, more comfortable than outside. If there's a chance, you guys can also try it." More comfortable than outside? The few of them looked at each other. Was he talking in his sleep? Which disciple of the Nine Heavens Palace didn't know that the Law Enforcement Hall's prison was 18 levels of hell? Even if they could come out alive, they would lose a layer of skin. Let them try it too? Wasn't this asking them to court death? Sure enough, they were not on the same level as these three. Chapter 2148. Qin Feiyang glanced at the second floor and asked in a low voice, "Is the palace master upstairs?" "No." They shook their heads. Qin Feiyang nodded thoughtfully, then smiled and said, "Let's get back to work." After they dispersed, Qin Feiyang and the other two also sat down at their respective positions. Qin Feiyang sorted out the account book and asked secretly, "Mu Tianyang, it's been so long. Is there any news about the Vein of Soul?" "No. I didn't dare to deliberately mention the Vein of Soul, afraid that Feng Yuan would notice something. So I've been looking for an opportunity." Mu Tianyang secretly said, "You're right to be concerned, but we have to hurry," Qin Feiyang said. "Understood." Mu Tianyang responded. An entire day passed, but Feng Yuan still didn't come to the resource hall. Qin Feiyang and the other two's work had finished. Mu Tianyang frowned and said, "Is he still kneeling in the assembly hall?" "I don't know." Qin Feiyang shook his head. Hui secretly said, "Why don't we go to the assembly hall to take a look?" "Is the assembly hall a place where we can go as we please?" Qin Feiyang immediately rolled his eyes at him. "That's not right. We can't go there." "But Brother Hua, no one dares to stop you now." Mu Tianyang secretly laughed. Qin Feiyang was taken aback and said with a smile, "That's true. After all, things are different now. Why do I feel so awkward? Are you guys making fun of me?" Hui frowned. No, you're the disciple of the Deputy Palace Master. We can't afford to offend you." Qin Feiyang laughed and said, "I've already said, I'm a fake. Forget it. I'm not going to talk nonsense with you guys. I'm going to find Lawner. A day without seeing her is like 3 years. Hui chuckled and then disappeared like a wisp of smoke. There's no humanity when there's a opposite sex. Mu Tianyang said in disdain. You're just jealous, aren't you? Qin Feiyang said. What am I jealous of? Mu Tianyang was filled with disdain. Qin Feiyang looked at him and sighed. Shun Mei's death is indeed a pity, but you can't always live in the past. But as soon as his voice fell, Qin Feiyang felt the change in Mu Tianyang's eyes. Don't mention her in front of me in the future, because it will remind me of my hatred for you, Mu Tianyang said with a gloomy voice, then transformed into a beam of light and disappeared without looking back. Alas! Looking at Mu Tianyang's back, Qin Feiyang couldn't help but let out a long sigh. He also went straight back to his cave and went into seclusion to cultivate. Over the next few days, Feng Yuan did not appear. Hui also learned from Shengguan Fenglan that Feng Yuan and a group of big shots had already left the great meeting hall that night. If he wasn't in the conference hall, nor did he come to the resource hall, then where was he now? Wait a minute. Was he with Feng Wanhai? Just as Qin Feiyang was lost in his thoughts, he suddenly felt an ice-cold gaze. Qin Feiyang looked up and saw a red-haired old man standing at the door, staring at him gloomily. It was Feng Yuan. "Greetings, Palace Master." The others quickly noticed Feng Yuan and hurriedly got up to salute. Feng Yuan turned a deaf ear to them. He glanced at Qin Feiyang and Hua Yi, then looked at Mu Tianyang and said, "Come up." After that, he went to the second floor without looking back. The Palace Master doesn't seem to be in a good mood. Isn't that nonsense? In Hui and Jin Yunchang did this kind of thing. How could he be happy? Several disciples whispered. Hui secretly said, "Brother Mu, be careful. If there's anything, just shout. We'll go up to support you at any time." Qin Feiyang also secretly said. Mu Tianyang smiled. Second floor. In the lounge, Feng Yuan sat in front of the tea table with a gloomy face. Mu Tianyang swaggered in and closed the door behind him. He did not salute, nor did he have the respect from before, and directly sat down opposite Feng Yuan. Seeing this, Feng Yuan raised his eyebrows and said, "Did this old man ask you to sit?" Mu Tianyang said indifferently, "Isn't this chair for people to sit on? Otherwise, it would look good." Pa. Feng Yuan immediately slammed his palm on the tea table and shouted, "With Huai backing you up, you're being impudent?" "Yes, I'm being impudent. What's wrong?" Mu Tianyang's face was full of provocation. Feng Yuan said sternly, "Don't forget, your little life is still in this old man's hands. Then why don't you kill me? Do you dare?" Mu Tianyang sneered. Feng Yuan clenched his hands, his eyes as sharp as a blade. "Don't stare at me like that. You asked for it. Originally, I really wanted to help you get rid of Jiang Haoyin, but what about you? You're actually trying to frame me. If it weren't for Jiang Haoyin's resourcefulness, I would have died in your hands this time," Mu Tianyang said. "What a joke. You dare to say that Feng Zijuan was not killed by you and Jiang Haoyin?" Feng Yuan shouted. "You even believed Gong Zifeng's words. You're really stupid. Let me tell you the truth. Gong Zifeng has already surrendered to Jiang Haoyin." Mu Tianyang sneered. "What? Surrendered to Jiang Haoyin long ago?" Feng Yuan was shocked. "Is it strange? Jiang Haoyin is a very good schemer. He knows that it's not easy to deal with you. After all, your strength is too strong. So he bribed Gong Zifeng and made him his spy." Mu Tianyang said, "Damn it, why didn't you tell me earlier?" Feng Yuan said angrily, "I'm sorry. I only heard this from Jiang Haoyin when I was in prison. Besides, this matter has nothing to do with you framing me. Tell me the truth. I'm so loyal to you, but you want to harm me. A person like you is really not worthy of serving." Mu Tianyang shook his head. Feng Yuan fell silent. Mu Tianyang got up and said, "Is there anything else? If there's nothing else, I'll go to work." "Sit down," Feng Yuan said. "Didn't you not let me sit just now?" Mu Tianyang said with a playful smile. "I told you to sit down," Feng Yuan said word by word, already on the verge of exploding in anger. Okay. Mu Tianyang nodded and returned to his seat, saying, "Go ahead, I'll listen." Feng Yuan asked, "When did you know Huoyi's identity?" Mu Tianyang said, "The same as you." "What about Jiang Haoyin and Frenzy?" Feng Yuan asked. Mu Tianyang said, "I only found out when I was in the Great Council Hall." Feng Yuan frowned and said, "You have such a good relationship with him. Have you asked him in private if he is the disciple of the Vice Palace Master? How can this be fake? The Vice Palace Master is such a powerful existence. Who would have the guts to pretend to be his disciple?" Mu Tianyang was speechless. "That makes sense." Feng Yuan nodded, pondered for a while, and said, "Then did Hua Yi tell the Vice Palace Master what I did to Jiang Haoyin?" Mu Tianyang said, "Didn't he say it in the Great Council Hall?" "Not yet." Feng Yuan said, "That's just polite words." Mu Tianyang said, "We asked in private, but we really haven't told the Vice Palace Master yet." Feng Yuan breathed a sigh of relief. But immediately after, a wisp of killing intent appeared in his old eyes. Mu Tianyang's pupils contracted. Could it be that he wanted to kill Huai? Wanted to silence him? This old thing is too crazy. One had to know that Hua Yi was the disciple of the Vice Palace Master. Killing Hua Yi would anger the Vice Palace Master. But thinking about it, it didn't seem to be a big deal. Thinking back, this old thing even dared to kill the great elder's own son, let alone Hua Yi, a disciple who had no blood relationship with him. Feng Yuan was silent for a moment, then looked at Mu Tianyang and said, "Help this old man do something. After it is done, not only will this old man remove my control over you, but I will also officially train you as the next hall master of the resource hall." Mu Tianyang said, "If you want to silence Hua Yi, then there's no need to talk about it." Feng Yuan was slightly taken aback, frowning. "You actually guessed it. Who do you think you can hide your thoughts from?" Mu Tianyang said indifferently, "Fine. This old man admits that this old man wants you to kill him to silence him. If you think this old man's conditions are not enough, feel free to speak." Feng Yuan said. "Really?" Mu Tianyang asked. And Feng Yuan nodded. Mu Tianyang pondered for a moment and said, "I want to know where the Nine Heavens Palace's soul vein is." And Feng Yuan was taken aback and asked suspiciously, "Why are you asking about the soul vein?" "Since entering Nine Heavens Palace, I have always heard that our Nine Heavens Palace's soul vein occupies half of the entire Northern Territory. I want to know if this is true, and I have never seen a real soul vein, so I am very curious. Of course, this is an additional condition. What I want the most is a spatial divine object," Mu Tianyang said. In this way, Feng Yuan would not be suspicious. Spatial divine object? That's very simple. Not to mention one. This old man can find 10 spatial divine objects for you. Feng Yuan smiled confidently. Qin Feiyang said, "Don't be so confident. I am talking about a spatial divine object with a time array." "What?" Feng Yuan suddenly stood up. "I know, this is a little hard for you to accept, but compared to this kind of worldly possession, your life is the most important. If Huai really tells the Vice Palace Master what you have done during this period of time, do you think you will still have a way to live? I am afraid not only you, but even Feng Zihan will be implicated." Mu Tianyang said playfully. Feng Yuan's eyes sank and said, "Don't think that you can beat this old man just because you have some chips in your hand. This old man doesn't need your help. If I want to kill Huai, I still have a way." "Then go. Let me tell you, Huai and Jiang Haoyan have already guessed that you might kill them to silence them, so they are always on guard against you," Mu Tianyang said. "Already guessed?" Feng Yuan raised his eyebrows. "How about it? Are you willing to give up your wealth or your life? Don't tell me you can't find a spatial divine object with a time array. No one will believe this kind of nonsense," Mu Tianyang said. Feng Yuan was silent. "I won't disturb you for now. You can think about it by yourself," Mu Tianyang said, then got up and walked towards the door. "Wait," Feng Yuan said. The corner of Mu Tianyang's mouth lifted, then he turned to look at Feng Yuan. Feng Yuan said, "This old man can indeed find such a spatial divine object, but I will give it to you after the matter is done." "Impossible. After the matter is done, what value do I have? At that time, I am afraid I will become the target of your silencing. I won't do this kind of loss-making business." Mu Tianyang shook his head. Chapter 2149. Feng Yuan frowned and said, "But if I give it to you first, how can I believe that you won't betray me?" Wait. Have you gone senile? My life is now in your hands, and you're still afraid that I'll betray you?" Mu Tianyang was stunned. Feng Yuan was stunned when he heard that. That's right. This person was now under his control. No matter how bold he was, he wouldn't dare to betray him. Why don't I give it to him first and kill him after the matter is done? At that time, won't the spatial divine item come back? In other words, it was only for him to temporarily keep it. No matter what the result was, this person had to die. Thinking of this, Feng Yuan didn't hesitate anymore. As he waved his hand, a golden palace appeared out of thin air. Mu Tianyang stared at the palace, his eyes shining. The palace was the size of a palm and only had one floor. It seemed to be made of gold and shone brightly. Feng Yuan said, "This thing is called the Golden Crow Temple. It can be big or small, and there is a time array inside." Golden Crow Temple. Mu Tianyang muttered and asked, "How many days is one day?" Feng Yuan said, "One day is half a year." "Half a year?" Mu Tianyang frowned and couldn't help but feel disappointed. In Qin Feiyang's castle, one day was equivalent to 1 year. In the Golden Crow Temple, one day was equivalent to half a year, which was double. If this continued, the gap between him and Qin Feiyang would grow bigger and bigger. But it was better than nothing. Although it couldn't compare to Qin Feiyang's castle, it was better than the Crimson Gold Divine Tower. Forget it. I'll reluctantly accept it. Mu Tianyang comforted himself. This old man can give you the Golden Crow Temple, but you must remember not to let anyone know about it, let alone let anyone see it. Especially our 9 Heavens Palace's Great Elder. Otherwise, this divine item will bring you a fatal disaster. Feng Yuan warned with a serious expression. So serious? Mu Tianyang was bewildered. Feng Yuan said in a deep voice, "It's more serious than what I said. Once the Golden Crow Temple is exposed, you will die for sure." Mu Tianyang's eyes flickered. Especially the Great Elder? Why did Feng Yuan say that? Could it be that the Golden Crow Temple had something to do with the First Elder? Wait a minute. First Elder's son was killed by Feng Yuan. Could it be the original owner of the Golden Crow Temple was the Great Elder's son? At the thought of this, Mu Tianyang suddenly felt that the Golden Crow Temple was like a hot potato. However, he didn't care either. So what if he was the First Elder's son? As long as it was in his hands, no one could take it back. Mu Tianyang stepped forward, grabbed the Golden Crow Temple, and dripped his blood on it to claim ownership. At the same time, Feng Yuan erased the blood contract inside. Very soon, master recognition complete. Mu Tianyang played with it for a while, then put it away. Feng Yuan said, "I've already given you the item. Now, tell me your plan." "It's still the original plan. But this time, I have to add Huai." Mu Tianyang laughed. Feng Yuan said, "Can you get rid of Madman for this old man as well?" "Get rid of Madman? You must be joking. Madman is a half-step supreme god, and he is currently in closed-door cultivation. How can I call him?" Mu Tianyang said. Feng Yuan laughed. "I believe you will have a way." This, Mu Tianyang pondered for a while and sighed. "All right, I'll try my best, but I can't guarantee that I can do it." And Feng Yuan nodded. Mu Tianyang asked, "Then I'll go and arrange it?" "The sooner the better." Feng Yuan said, "All right, I'll bring them into the Sky Dragon Sea tomorrow. Wait for my good news." Mu Tianyang smiled, then turned and left. "I'll let you be proud for a while." Feng Yuan looked at Mu Tianyang's back view and secretly sneered. First floor. Seeing Mu Tianyang come down with a happy face, Qin Feiyang and Hui looked at each other and thought, "Seems like something good happened?" "Of course. Everything is as I expected." Mu Tianyang smiled proudly and thought, "Do you know the Golden Crow Temple?" "Golden Crow Temple?" Qin Feiyang was stunned and shook his head. "I don't know. What is it?" Huai looked at Mu Tianyang curiously. "A spatial divine object. And it's a spatial divine object with a time array. Feng Yuan gave it to me. The rules of time. 1 day is equal to half a year." Mu Tianyang thought, "Damn, you're taking advantage of me." No, everyone has a share." Huai was shocked. "How do we split it?" "Split it in half for you, half for me?" Mu Tianyang rolled his eyes. "That works too." Huai nodded. "Get lost." Mu Tianyang glared at him. Qin Feiyang frowned and thought, "Things aren't that simple. Is there a need to think about it? He paid such a huge price. He must have an ulterior motive." Mu Tianyang sighed. "What ulterior motive?" Huai was suspicious. Mu Tianyang said, "He asked me to kill you in frenzy. This old thing still doesn't know how to stop." Huai cursed. "He also wants to stop, but he doesn't dare. You're a ticking time bomb. Sooner or later you'll crush him to pieces. How can he not think of a way to get rid of you?" I also agreed. "Tomorrow, we'll leave for the Sky Dragon Sea. And he also promised me that after the matter is done, he will tell me the location of the soul vein." Mu Tianyang thought. Soul vein. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed, but suddenly he seemed to have thought of something and glanced at Huai. "Why are you looking at me?" Huai was puzzled. Qin Feiyang said, "You're the disciple of the Vice Palace Master. You won't report us, right?" I already said that I'm an imposter. Why don't you believe me? Solvane, is it? Don't worry, when the time comes, we'll take action together and not leave a single one of them. What Yi said domineeringly. Qin Feiyang and Mu Tianyang looked at each other and asked, You're not acting with us, right? My mood. We've been together for so long. I basically know what you guys have done. If I'm really the disciple of the Vice Palace Master, you guys would have been finished long ago. How can you stand here so easily and talk to me? Hui looked helpless. Qin Feiyang thought, Mu Tianyang, he can't really be an imposter, right? Don't be careless. This person is unfathomable. It's better to be careful. Mu Tianyang transmitted his voice. Qin Feiyang nodded without leaving a trace. Mu Tianyang thought again. By the way, when you have time, ask the Vice Palace Master if he knows about the Golden Crow Temple. Why ask him? Qin Feiyang was suspicious. You'll understand when you ask. The question now is Frenzy willing to go to the Sky Dragon Sea? Mu Tianyang thought. This question. Why don't we let Hori go? After all, his face is bigger than ours now. Qin Feiyang said. Yes, the identity of the Vice Palace Master's disciple can't be wasted in vain. Mu Tianyang patted his head and then looked at Hua Yi. Qin Feiyang also looked at Hua Yi again. Why are you looking at me again? Hua Yi was very depressed. The two smiled and secretly said, There's something I need your help with at night. The waning moon hung in the sky, decorated with cold stars. St. Peak. Inside the first cave abode, Qin Feiyang stood on the ground and looked at a shadow in the void in front of him. He cupped his hands and said, Greetings, old senior. It was an old man. He held a walking stick in his hand and had a kind face. Little friend, this old man has already heard about what happened a few days ago. This time, you have survived a great disaster and will definitely have good fortune in the future. The old man was the Vice Palace Master of the Treasure Pavilion. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, Thank you, old senior, for your auspicious words. The Vice Palace Master asked, Little friend, are you looking for this old man for any medicinal herbs? That's not it. This junior's message is to ask old senior if you know of a spatial divine object called the Golden Crow Temple. Qin Feiyang said. Golden Crow Temple. As soon as the Vice Palace Master heard these 4 words, his expression and tone changed, bringing with it a sharp edge that could penetrate one's heart. Qin Feiyang said, It seems that old senior knows about this Golden Crow Temple. How do you know about the Golden Crow Temple? The Vice Palace Master asked. I just found out today. Old senior, may I ask what the origin of this Golden Crow Temple is? Qin Feiyang said. The Vice Palace Master pondered for a long time and sighed. The owner of the Golden Crow Temple is the Great Elder's son. What? It's actually him. Qin Feiyang was shocked. Could it be that Mu Tianyang would say that he would understand after asking the Vice Palace Master? It's just that back then, after the Great Elder's son died, the Golden Crow Temple disappeared. This old man still remembers that the Grand Elder came to question this old man if it was this old man who snatched the Golden Crow Shrine away. But I really didn't. I also personally went to the Sky Dragon Sea to look for it, but I found nothing. The Vice Palace Master sighed. I see. Qin Feiyang nodded in realization. The Vice Palace Master said in surprise, Little friend, you suddenly mentioned the Golden Crow Temple. Do you have news about the Golden Crow Temple? Qin Feiyang said with a smile. The Golden Crow Temple has always been in Feng Yuan's hands. What? In his hands? The Vice Palace Master was originally sitting in the armchair, but after hearing Qin Feiyang's words, he immediately stood up and his eyes flashed with a cold light. Yes. However, just this morning, he gave the Golden Crow Temple to Mu Tianyang. Qin Feiyang said. To Mu Tianyang? He's willing to give up such a precious space divine item? The Vice Palace Master was surprised. There's a reason behind it. As for the reason, it's not convenient for me to reveal it now. Please forgive me. Qin Feiyang said. It's fine. I won't force you to answer a question that you don't want to answer. The Vice Palace Master waved his hand and returned to his seat. He lowered his head and pondered for a while, then said, So, what you said to me back then was true? It was true from the beginning. Of course, I also know that you won't believe it easily. After all, it's just my words, and there's no evidence. However, the appearance of the Golden Crow Temple has undoubtedly confirmed this point. Qin Feiyong said with a smile, "This Feng Yuan is really bold." Chapter 2150. Qin Feiyong hurriedly said, "Senior, please calm down. I didn't believe you before because I didn't have evidence, but now that the evidence is irrefutable, how can I not be angry? This crippled leg, and all the grievances I've suffered all these years, I'll make him pay for them one by one." The Vice Pavilion Master shouted, a trace of viciousness creeping up between his brows. "Senior, please calm down first. Even if the Golden Crow Temple appears, it won't be able to sentence Feng Yuan to death," Qin Feiyong said. The Vice Pavilion Master was slightly taken aback and frowned. "What do you mean? Feng Yuan is an old fox. Even if you come to Nine Heavens Palace and tell the Great Elder the truth, Feng Yuan will definitely not admit it. He can say that he took the Golden Crow Temple for himself because of a moment of greed. If Feng Yuan refuses to admit it, what can we do to him? There's nothing we can do. In the end, the Great Elder can only take back the Golden Crow Temple and punish Feng Yuan. After the punishment, he will still be as carefree as before. The most important thing is, once he knows that we are investigating him, he will be more careful in the future. He will even immediately erase all traces of this matter. At that time, it will be even more difficult for us to find evidence," Qin Feiyong said. Hearing this, the Vice Pavilion Master slowly calmed down and nodded. "What you said makes sense. I was foolish just now. Understandable. After all, I have been wronged for so many years. If it were me, I would have done the same." Qin Feiyong smiled. "Then I'll leave this matter to you. If you need anything, just say it. I will do my best to help you," the Vice Pavilion Master said. Qin Feiyong smiled and said, "Junior will definitely clear Senior's name." "Thank you," the Vice Pavilion Master said gratefully. "Senior has taken care of me during this period, so this is what I should do. There's no need to thank me. However, I really want something," Qin Feiyong said. "What is it?" The Vice Pavilion Master was suspicious. "Chaos Origin Divine Art," Qin Feiyong said. "Primordial God Technique?" The Vice Pavilion Master was stunned. "Yes," Qin Feiyong nodded. The Vice Pavilion Master asked, "Do you know the cultivation conditions of the Chaos Divine Art?" "I know. The first time I entered the Treasure Pavilion, I saw the Chaos Origin Divine Art. Only those who have born inner demons can cultivate it," Qin Feiyong said. "Then what do you want the Chaos Divine Art for?" "Wait, don't tell me you have inner demons?" The Vice Pavilion Master was bewildered. Qin Feiyong sighed. "To be honest, I did have inner demons in the past." The Deputy Pavilion Lord stared at Qin Feiyong, dumbfounded. "In the past, not only did I have inner demons, I also had a very good relationship with the inner demons. We live in peace and depend on each other. We are like twins. But good times don't last long. Later on, in order to save me, he sacrificed himself." Qin Feiyong sighed, and the space between his brows was suffused with dense sorrow. It's really hard to imagine that there is such a benevolent and righteous inner demons in this world. The Vice Pavilion Lord sighed. If it came from someone else, he would definitely not believe it. But he felt that Qin Feiyong would not lie to him. Qin Feiyong sighed faintly. "In this life, I owe him too much, and I can't repay him. Since the inner demons have already sacrificed themselves, the Chaos Origin Divine Art is meaningless to you. What do you want it for?" the Vice Pavilion Lord asked. "I don't know either. Since the first time I saw the Chaos Origin Divine Art, my heart has always yearned for it," Qin Feiyong said in confusion. "The yearning of the heart," the Vice Pavilion Lord murmured and sighed. "You probably can't let go of the inner demons, and you have never wanted to admit the death of the inner demons, so this yearning appeared. I really can't let go. I'm even wondering if he's not dead yet. Maybe he's waiting for me somewhere? But I know that it's impossible. I'm very confused," Qin Feiyong said. "I didn't expect your feelings for the inner demons to be so deep." The Vice Pavilion Lord sighed and pondered for a while before saying, "How about this? When you're free, come to the Treasure Pavilion, and I'll ask little Chio to give you the Chaos Origin Divine Art." "Thank you, Senior." Qin Feiyong hurriedly bowed and thanked him. "But you have to remember, this Chaos Origin Divine Art is given to you, and you can't give it to anyone, unless the other party has the inner demons," the Vice Pavilion Lord reminded. Qin Feiyong stared blankly for a moment before he said, "Senior, pardon me for asking, but is your treasure pavilion specially looking for people with inner demons?" "How so?" The Vice Pavilion Lord looked at Qin Feiyong curiously. Qin Feiyong said, "Because the Chaos Origin Divine Art is sold at 0 price, which is obviously not the style of a businessman." "Young friend, you're really smart." The Vice Pavilion Lord looked at Qin Feiyong with appreciation and nodded. "That's right. The Treasure Pavilion is indeed looking for people with the inner demons." "Why?" Qin Feiyong was puzzled. The Vice Pavilion Lord smiled apologetically. "This matter is related to a big shot, so I can't say much. Please forgive me." "Big shot?" Qin Feiyong was shocked. This big shot had extraordinary significance, because an existence like the Vice Pavilion Lord was already a big shot, standing at the top of the pyramid. But at this moment, there was actually a big shot that even the Vice Pavilion Lord had to call a big shot. The Vice Pavilion Lord was such a powerful existence, so how terrifying was the big shot he mentioned? Coming back to his senses, Qin Feiyong hurriedly asked, "Since it's related to a big shot, then if you give me the Chaos Origin Divine Art now, how will you explain it to him?" "I will explain your situation to him. I believe he will definitely understand." The Vice Pavilion Lord smiled. "As long as I don't cause trouble for you, I'm relieved," Qin Feiyong said. "I won't." The Vice Pavilion Lord waved his hand and asked, "I wonder if you have any plans now?" Qin Feiyong said, "Is it to deal with Feng Yuan?" The Vice Pavilion Lord nodded. "I do have a plan. Mu Tianyang, Frenzy, Hua Yi, and I will go to the deepest part of the Sky Dragon Sea tomorrow. This may be a life and death battle," Qin Feiyong said with a smile. "The deepest part of the Sky Dragon Sea?" The Vice Pavilion Lord was shocked and hurriedly said, "The Sky Dragon Sea is not an ordinary dangerous place, especially the deepest part. Even I don't dare to step into it." "You kids, are you courting death?" "Although it has something to do with Feng Yuan, there are also reasons why we have to go," Qin Feiyong said. "What is the reason that you have to go?" The Vice Pavilion Lord frowned. "This?" Qin Feiyong hesitated. "If you don't want to say, I won't force you, but I still hope that you can think about it carefully. This is not child's play. You will lose your life. If you insist on going, then come to the Treasure Pavilion now and look for little Chio," the Vice Pavilion Lord said. "Look for her for what?" Qin Feiyong was puzzled. "You will know when you come," the Vice Pavilion Lord said. Qin Feiyong nodded and said, "All right, I will go to the Treasure Pavilion immediately." "It seems that you really insist on going to the Sky Dragon Sea. I have to say that it is good to be young. You can do whatever you want. But to be honest, I still admire young people like you who dare to take risks." The Vice Pavilion Lord shook his head and smiled. Qin Feiyong smiled bitterly. If it weren't for the fact that he was looking for his ancestor, he wouldn't be willing to take this risk. After turning off the image crystal, Qin Feiyong immediately set off and rushed to the Treasure Pavilion. "Zhang Haoyin, stop right there." But when Qin Feiyong walked down the sky stairway and was about to open the altar, a shout suddenly sounded from the mountain stream below. It was a woman's voice. Qin Feiyong was stunned. He walked to the edge of the cliff and looked down, only to see a chubby woman rising into the air aggressively. She was no longer fat. She was at least 200 to 300 pounds and was full of fat. Obviously, she was extremely ugly. Bam! The woman landed on the mountain peak and the ground shook. "You are?" Qin Feiyong looked at the fat woman suspiciously. But the fat woman stared at Qin Feiyong without saying a word. Her eyes were full of hatred. "That's ridiculous." Qin Feiyong shook his head and opened the altar. Boom. But then, the fat woman took a step forward and smashed the altar with a punch. Then, she threw another punch at Qin Feiyong. Divine power surged and the void shook. A war god of perfection? Qin Feiyang frowned and immediately raised his hand and threw a punch. Boom! The fat woman was directly sent flying and smashed onto the ground in a sorry state. Who are you? Have I offended you? Qin Feiyang said angrily. He had never seen this woman before. Cut the crap. Give me back the lives of my son and husband. The fat woman roared and rushed toward Qin Feiyang like a mad beast. Son? Husband? What the hell is this? When did I kill your son and husband? Qin Feiyang dodged and asked suspiciously. How long has it been since Jin Yunchang died? Have you forgotten? The fat woman roared. With a clang, a broadsword appeared. It was as wide as a palm and was golden in color. It was a peak-level divine artifact. Jin Yunchang? Qin Feiyang looked at the fat woman in astonishment. So, this woman is Feng Yuan's daughter? Jin Fatso's mother? The corner of his mouth twitched. This woman was not someone that an ordinary man could handle. Jin Yunchang was a talented man. If it weren't for the power of the Feng family, he wouldn't have married this woman. No wonder everyone said that Jin Yunchang was a man who lived off a woman. But frankly speaking, he was quite impressed with Jin Yunchang. He sacrificed so much in order to get close to the Feng family. Little bastard, go to hell. The fat woman roared and grabbed the broadsword. Divine power surged into the broadsword, and the broadsword immediately came to life. Then, she slashed at Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang frowned and quickly dodged. Then, he glanced at the old man sitting next to the stairway. The old man didn't open his eyes. Was this a tacit agreement? Could he do whatever he wanted? Just as Qin Feiyang was wondering, the fat woman slashed at him again. Qin Feiyang stepped back and said angrily, Are the people of the Feng family also unreasonable? It was Fatso and Jin Yunchang who provoked me first. I was just... Cut the crap. You must die today. The fat woman roared. Chapter 2151. You're unreasonable. Qin Feiyang also lost his patience. Although he shouldn't implicate his wife and children, this woman was the one who came to his door first, so there was no need to be polite. Moreover, there was a peak-level divine artifact, so he couldn't miss it. Boom. The aura of a perfect war god was fully unleashed. Qin Feiyang didn't dodge anymore and took the initiative to attack. The Xing character art was used to the extreme. Like a ghost, the fat woman almost couldn't catch his trace. As the daughter of Feng Yuan, the fat woman naturally had a lot of trump cards. For example, the support divine arts were all perfect level. However, in front of the Xing character art, perfect level support divine arts were like an adult and a baby, completely not on the same level. In less than 10 breaths, Qin Feiyang found an opportunity. A wisp of blood flew out and instantly cut off the fat woman's arm. And it was the arm that was holding the broadsword. Blood splattered in the sky. The fat woman covered her wound and screamed. However, Qin Feiyang didn't pay attention to her. He quickly dived down and grabbed the broadsword. Don't even think about it. The fat woman roared angrily and wanted to take back the broadsword. Sorry, once something is in my hands, you won't have the chance to take it back. Qin Feiyang grinned and directly sent the broadsword to the castle. The fat woman also instantly felt that she had lost contact with the broadsword. You deserve to die. This made her almost crazy. Ignoring the wound on her shoulder, she angrily pounced at Qin Feiyang. Why don't you know how to restrain yourself? Qin Feiyang sighed. In the blink of an eye, a wisp of blood flew into the fat woman's forehead like lightning. Her soul was immediately destroyed. Ah! Accompanied by a shrill scream. The fat woman suddenly smashed into the mountain peak like a huge rock and died. And it was also at this moment. An anxious cry of grief sounded. Qin Feiyang frowned. This was really strange. After killing one, another one came. He turned around and saw a woman flying through the air toward him. The woman was tall and beautiful. She wore a pure black dress with a small white flower on her chest. She looked like she was in mourning. And she was Feng Zihan. Feng Zihan flew over and landed beside the fat woman, calling out softly. Qin Feiyang glanced at Feng Zihan and took out a teleportation altar. Stop! Feng Zihan suddenly shouted, standing up and staring at Qin Feiyang. his eyes filled with killing intent. Qin Feiyang said indifferently, "It's not my fault. She came to kill me first." "So you killed her?" Feng Zihan said furiously. "What a joke. She came to kill me, so why can't I kill her? Am I supposed to stand here and let her slaughter me?" Qin Feiyang sneered. Feng Zihan was silent for a while, then said word by word, "Blood for blood." Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows. Each one was more unreasonable than the other. Suddenly, the white-haired old man sitting beside the heaven stairway said, "Feng Zihan, Zhang Haoyin was indeed defending himself." "Did you hear that?" Qin Feiyang snorted coldly. Feng Zihan's face was gloomy. Suddenly, she turned to look at the white-haired old man and bowed. "Senior, all along, as long as the people of Nine Heavens Palace leave Nine Heavens Palace, no matter what, you won't ask." "Are you sure you want to do this?" the white-haired old man asked, his eyes still closed. "I'm sure." Feng Zihan nodded. "Up to you," the white-haired old man said indifferently and then fell silent. Shua. Feng Zihan turned around again and looked at Qin Feiyang, saying, "Come, let me see how capable you are. Coming early is better than coming at the right time." "How lively!" Suddenly, a mocking laugh sounded. Qin Feiyang raised his head and saw Madman walking down the heaven stairway step by step. He asked in surprise, "Weren't you in closed-door cultivation? Isn't it all because of that Huali?" He came over and said a bunch of nonsense to this father, making this father a little annoyed. "So I ran out to relax. I didn't expect to meet you guys. What a coincidence. Stinking woman, what are you trying to do?" Madman looked at Feng Zihan and asked. Feng Zihan frowned her beautiful brows, saying, "This is a matter between me and Zhang Haoyin. Don't interfere." "That won't do." The reason this father was able to come out of the prison alive was all because of Zhang Haoyin. This father is a person who values friendship the most. If he is in trouble, how can this father just sit by and do nothing? Moreover, your mother harmed this father. This father also wants to have a good chat with you. After Madman finished speaking, he stepped in front of Qin Feiyang and said with a faint smile, "Go busy yourself." "Thank you, senior brother." Qin Feiyang smiled. He opened the altar and jumped up without looking back. "Stop right there." Feng Zihan shouted coldly and instantly appeared behind Madman, sending a palm towards the teleportation altar. But at the same time, Madman grabbed Feng Zihan's wrist and said unhappily, "Can you not treat this father like air?" "Let go." Feng Zihan shouted. "All right." Madman grinned and a huge force appeared in his palm. Feng Zihan was sent flying as a trace of blood flowed out from the corner of her mouth. "You." Feng Zihan angrily stared at Madman. "Why don't we spar again? But let me say this in advance, this father won't go easy on you." Madman's lips curled into a playful smile. Feng Zihan looked at Madman and then at Qin Feiyang, only to see that Qin Feiyang was about to disappear. Shua. With another flash, she charged towards Qin Feiyang. "You really don't put this father in your eyes." Madman's face also showed a trace of anger. His half-step immortal aura surged toward Feng Zihan like an avalanche. Poof! Feng Zihan was sent flying again as blood poured out of her mouth. At the same time, Qin Feiyang completely disappeared. The teleportation altar also disintegrated and dissipated. "Madman, you bastard. You actually hurt me again and again for someone you just met." Feng Zihan was furious. Madman said helplessly, "If you could be more honest, would this father hurt you?" Twisting words and forcing logic. "You want to spar? Okay, I'll accompany you today." With a boom, Feng Zihan's aura was released, and she was close to Madman's. "Not bad. Your cultivation has improved a bit." Madman chuckled. "Stop grinning at me." Feng Zihan coldly snorted, suddenly raising her arm, her jade finger pointing in the air. Boom! A destructive aura suddenly appeared out of nowhere like the eruption of a volcano. "Annihilation Divine Finger." Madman's pupils constricted as he shouted, "Are you serious? Do I look like I'm joking?" Feng Zihan shouted, "What a crazy woman." Madman shook his head but didn't counterattack. He just dodged. As for the white-haired old man, He didn't even look at her from beginning to end and seemed extremely calm. The treasure pavilion had already closed, but there were still 2 guards guarding the door. When Qin Feiyang arrived at the treasure pavilion, the 2 guards immediately bowed and said, "Young Master Jiang, the manager has been waiting for you inside for a long time." "Okay." Qin Feiyang nodded and pushed the door open. He saw a beautiful woman standing in the middle of the hall. There was only the woman in the entire hall, and it was very quiet. It was Shang Guanxiu. Qin Feiyang closed the door behind him and said with a smile, "I'm sorry, something happened on the way and I've kept you waiting." Shang Guanxiu was stunned and frowned. "What happened?" "Feng Yuan's daughter. This family is really difficult to deal with." Qin Feiyang shook his head. "So many people have died, but they still don't know how to restrain themselves. It seems that the Feng family is hopeless." Shang Guanxiu shook her head and sighed. She took out a jade box and handed it to Qin Feiyang. "This is what you want." Qin Feiyang took the jade box and opened it to take a look. He saw a jade slip lying quietly inside. "Chaos Divine Technique," Qin Feiyang murmured as he grabbed the jade slip. His divine consciousness sank into it, and a trace of melancholy crept up between his brows. Shang Guanxiu said, "The Deputy Pavilion Master has already told me about the inner demons. To be honest, I'm really surprised." "Surprised?" Qin Feiyang was stunned. "Yes. Normally, only those who are particularly vicious will give birth to inner demons. As for you, although we haven't known each other for long, I can see that you're not that kind of ruthless devil. Your state of mind is also very good. How did you give birth to inner demons?" Shang Guanxiu was suspicious. Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled. "The state of mind is tempered." "Tempered?" Shang Guanxiu frowned. Did this person also have an unbearable past? But it didn't look like it. Qin Feiyang put away the jade slip and didn't continue the topic. "The Deputy Pavilion Master asked me to come to the Treasure Pavilion to look for you, not just to ask you to give me the Chaos Divine Technique, right?" "Yes, there's something else, and it's a supreme treasure." Shang Guanxiu nodded and took out another item from his interspatial ring. It was a 1-meter-long animal skin roll. Its surface was slightly yellow and looked very old. "See for yourself." Feng Zihan handed the animal skin roll over to Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang grabbed the animal skin roll and then slowly opened it. He saw that there were lines drawn on it. Each line had a different mark. "This is..." Qin Feiyang looked at it carefully for a moment, and the confusion in his eyes grew. He looked up at Shang Guanxiu and asked, "This looks like a map?" "Yes, this is a map, and it's a map of the Sky Dragon Sea," Shang Guanxiu said. "What?" Qin Feiyang's eyes trembled. He looked down at the animal skin roll again, and the excitement on his face could not be concealed. It was a map of the Sky Dragon Sea. Chapter 2152. The Heavenly Dragon Sea was the biggest and most dangerous forbidden area in the North region. For example, the Deputy Pavilion Lord. Not long ago, he had said that even he did not dare to step into the deepest part. One could imagine how dangerous was the Heavenly Dragon Sea. Therefore, a map was very important. Without a map, no one knew what was ahead, and they could lose their lives at any time. However, it was completely different with a map. Although a map was not omnipotent, at least they knew where they could go and where they could not. This would undoubtedly reduce a lot of burden and save a lot of trouble. And this map, every place and every route was clearly described. As Shang Guanxiu said, this was a treasure that could not be exchanged for anything. There are only 2 maps of the Heavenly Dragon Sea in the entire North region. The first one is in your hands. As for the second one, it is in the 9 Heavens Palace. Originally, I wanted to make a copy, but there was not enough time, so I could only give this original to you. But you have to remember, this is not a gift but a loan. You must keep it well and not damage it. When you return from the Heavenly Dragon Sea, return it to me immediately. Shang Guanxiu said. Don't worry. Qin Feiyang nodded. This map was too precious. The Deputy Pavilion Lord and Shang Guanfeng lent it to him because they trusted him greatly. He would not let them down. Shang Guanxiu smiled. All right then, I won't say much, lest you think I'm naggy. Be careful. Qin Feiyong kept the map and smiled. Why don't I refine some 4 symbols infinite divine pills for you before you leave? Shangguan Qiu frowned. You mean you won't be coming back this time? How can I not come back? I just don't know how long it will take. Qin Feiyong said. Now that you mention it, Shangguan Qiu pondered for a while and said, all right, then you can refine some more to avoid running out of stock. Wait here. I'll go get the herbs right away. Qin Feiyong nodded. Shangguan Qiu turned around and left quickly. After a while, he came back in a hurry and took out 4 palm-sized jade bottles and a cosmos sack. Qin Feiyong looked at the 4 jade bottles, and his expression suddenly froze. He asked, so many? A jade bottle the size of an adult's palm contained at least a few hundred drops of blood essence. He then grabbed the Chinquin bag, and his face instantly darkened. There should be 500 to 600 everlasting divine fruits in this Chinquin bag. You were the one who said that you would help me refine it. You can't regret it now. Shangguan Qiu looked at him with a smile. But isn't this too much? Refining the 4 symbols infinite divine pellet is not as simple as other pellets. The amount of mental energy consumed is far beyond what you can imagine. Besides, didn't you say that there aren't many medicinal herbs? Qin Feiyong was speechless. Shangguan Qiu said, only about 500 sets of herbs. That's not a lot. More than 500? Qin Feiyong felt extremely helpless. If he had known earlier, he wouldn't have helped. Don't be like that. Anyway, you'll get a share of the soul stones from the auction. You can take the herbs back first and refine as many as you can. You can return the rest to me tomorrow morning. Shangguan Qiu smiled. Qin Feiyong shook his head and said, there's no need to go back to the Ninth Heaven Palace. Let's do it here. It was troublesome to run around. Here? Shangguan Qiu was stunned. Yes. Qin Feiyong waved his hand and took out the netherworld demonic flame and the blue phoenix cauldron. So you have your own alchemy fire. Shangguan Qiu suddenly realized. Qin Feiyong said, I don't like to be disturbed when I'm refining pellets. You can arrange it. Okay. Shangguan Qiu nodded and walked to the door. He opened the door and said to the 2 guards outside, from now on, I won't see anyone. Yes. The 2 guards replied respectfully. Also, you are not allowed to make a sound. After Shangguan Qiu finished speaking, he gently closed the door. What do you mean? The 2 guards looked at each other. Wait, Zhang Haoyan didn't come out, did he? A man and a woman are alone inside. Are they? Don't talk nonsense. How is that nonsense? Didn't you hear the rumors outside? There's something going on between our steward and Zhang Haoyan. Look at them now. The 2 of them are alone inside. A man and a woman, naked. Damn, this is too exciting. Looks like the treasure pavilion is going to have a wedding soon. The 2 of them whispered to each other outside, but there was dead silence inside. Qin Feiyong closed his eyes and focused. Shangguan Qiu stood aside silently and looked at Qin Feiyong curiously. There was a divine power boundary around the 2 of them. It was set up by Shangguan Qiu. It was mainly to isolate the high temperature of the netherworld demonic flame. After all, the netherworld demonic flame was now a divine-level alchemy fire. When it recovered, the high temperature would sweep through the entire treasure pavilion. A moment later, Qin Feiyong finally opened his eyes and began to refine pills calmly. Every movement and step was as smooth as flowing water. It was a visual pleasure. Shangguan Qiu was unknowingly mesmerized. Time flew by. The next day, early morning, 3 figures descended on the coastline of the Sky Dragon Sea. They were Hua Yi, Frenzy, and Mu Tianyang. Mu Tianyang smiled and said, Good morning, you too. It's already so late. Is it still early? Frenzy rolled his eyes. Mu Tianyang came to Frenzy's side and smiled. Senior brother Frenzy, I heard that you fought with Feng Zihan outside last night. When I went out this morning, I also heard everyone talking about it, and someone said that Zhang Haoyan killed Feng Yuan's daughter. Senior brother Frenzy, is that true? Hui asked. Yes. Frenzy nodded. Hui shook his head. The Feng family is really hopeless. What was the result of your fight with Feng Zihan? Frenzy said angrily, Nonsense. Is there a need to ask? Of course, I won. That can't be right. I heard that you didn't fight back. We have such a good relationship, So just say something from the bottom of your heart. Do you not have the heart to hurt her? Do you like her in your heart? Hui smiled mischievously. Frenzy raised his eyebrows and said angrily, You even dare to gossip about me. Do you think you can be arrogant just because you have the Vice Palace Master backing you? No, no. Don't misunderstand. I'm just curious. Besides, liking someone is not a shameful thing. Look at me. I follow behind Lon all day, and no one says anything? Hui chuckled. I'm not as thick-skinned as you. Frenzy's face was full of disdain. Then he looked around and frowned. Why isn't Zhang Haoyan here yet? I don't know. Before I came, I went to his cave abode. There was no one. Hori shook his head. Anyway, there's no rush. Let's wait. Mu Tianyang smiled. Treasure Pavilion. At this moment, there were already hundreds of people gathered outside. These people all came to the Treasure Pavilion early in the morning to buy things or sell things. But when they arrived, they found that the Treasure Pavilion, which usually opened for business before dawn, was actually closed today. Moreover, the two guards guarding the outer door didn't allow them to question or make a ruckus. What was going on? There were more and more people, but the door didn't open for a long time. Are you still going to open the door today? Can you give us a definite answer? If you're not opening, we'll go back first and come back tomorrow. Finally, someone couldn't help but ask. Sure. The two guards hurriedly glared at the man and gestured for him to keep quiet. In fact, they were also puzzled. It had already been an entire night. Even if they were having sex inside, it should have been over long ago. Creak. Suddenly, a sound rang. Everyone looked at the door. They saw the door open, and a white-clothed youth with a tired and haggard face walked out. Zhang Haoyan? Why is he in the Treasure Pavilion? And he looks so haggard? Everyone was stunned. Good morning, everyone. Qin Feiyang showed a forced smile, greeted the crowd, and opened a transmission altar. Shang Guanxiu also came out at this time, waved at Qin Feiyang and said with a smile, Take care, I won't see you off. His expression was completely different from Qin Feiyang's. He was radiant and full of vitality. Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes at Shang Guanxiu, stepped onto the altar, and quickly disappeared. Shang Guanxiu also turned and left with a smile on his face. Damn, Shang Guanxiu is also here? What's going on? Everyone's face was full of doubts. A young man in black ran to the two guards and said in a low voice, Brothers, did Zhang Haoyan and your steward stay inside for an entire night? Ahem. How can you say that? Show some respect. The two guards hurriedly shouted. The black-clothed youth was stunned, and then a look of understanding appeared on his face. He waved his hand and said with a smile, No need to say any more, I understand, I understand. His smile was extremely ambiguous. Hearing that, the others looked at each other and also smiled ambiguously. It seemed that the rumors were true. However, these two were too powerful. They actually made love in there for an entire night? No wonder Zhang Haoyan was so haggard. Who would be able to endure an entire night? Brother, it's over. They found out. Looking at everyone's reaction, one of the guards transmitted his voice. So what if they found out? It will be made public sooner or later anyway. Moreover, our steward and Zhang Haoyan are a match made in heaven. Let's just wait for the wedding candies. Another guard said. Shang Guanxiu and Qin Feiyang didn't know about these rumors and slanders. They would never have thought that refining pills for an entire night would cause such a huge misunderstanding. Sky Dragon C. Looking at Qin Feiyang, who was walking slowly with a tired face, the three of them were all suspicious. Brother, what's wrong with you? With your cultivation, even if you don't eat, drink, or sleep, you can't be so haggard, right? Hui said. Don't mention it. I refined pills for an entire night in the Treasure Pavilion. Qin Feiyang shook his head. In fact, he had finished refining the 4 symbols infinite divine pills in the second half of the night. However, Shang Guanxiu asked him to refine some 9 transformation dragon blood pills and 9 Chu yellow dragon pills, which really tired him out. So it was refining pills. Hui nodded in realization and said jokingly, I thought you and Shang Guanxiu had sex for an entire night. Sex? Qin Feiyang was stunned. Chapter 2153. You don't even know about war? Huai was surprised. What do you mean? Qin Feiyong was suspicious. Ahem. Mu Tianyang coughed and said, It means that you and Shang Guanxiu are having sex in the treasure pavilion. Qin Feiyong was stunned and looked at Huai speechlessly. What was he thinking all day long? Why was he so filthy? Actually, I don't mind if you become my brother-in-law. Huai chuckled. Can I mind? Qin Feiyong glared at him fiercely. What do you mind? I'm the disciple of the Vice Palace Master. It's your honor to be my brother-in-law. Huai pouted. Get lost. Qin Feiyong didn't want to talk nonsense with him anymore. He looked at Frenzy and Mu Tianyang and said, I have to recuperate. Which one of you is willing to let me into your spatial divine item? Frenzy acted as if he didn't hear it. Mu Tianyang glanced at Frenzy and said helplessly, Go to my divine palace. Okay, I also want to see it, Qin Feiyong said. Mu Tianyang smiled and said, It seems that you have confirmed it with the Vice Palace Master. Yes. Qin Feiyong nodded. What did he say? Mu Tianyang was curious. Qin Feiyong said, He was very angry, but I calmed him down. Otherwise, your divine palace would definitely be destroyed. Mu Tianyang said, Then shouldn't I thank you? Qin Feiyong shook his head and said, No need to thank me. I know you're hypocritical. As long as you don't stab me in the back. What are you two talking about? What divine palace? It's related to the Vice Palace Master? Frenzy looked at the two suspiciously. It's the Golden Crow Divine Palace. Huai interjected. Yesterday, when Mu Tianyang came down from the second floor, Huai was also present, so he knew about the Golden Crow Temple. What? Golden Crow Temple? Madman was dumbfounded. Brother Huai, why are you so talkative? Mu Tianyang angrily looked at Huai. He definitely couldn't let Madman know about this. Because of the Madman's relationship with the First Elder, he definitely knew about the existence of the Golden Crow Temple. What if Madman told the Great Elder? Huai innocently asked, Is there a need to hide this from Senior Apprentice Brother Crazy? Alas. Mu Tianyang sighed and said, The original owner of the Golden Crow Temple was actually the First Elder's son. I see. Huai immediately understood. Looking at Mu Tianyang, he smiled and said, I'm sorry. I've already said it. What's the use of apologizing? Mu Tianyang rolled his eyes at him. Golden Crow Temple, the First Elder's son. Madman muttered to himself and looked at the three of them. You guys are really amazing. You actually investigated so many secrets without anyone knowing. Hearsay, hearsay. Mu Tianyang laughed dryly. Stop talking nonsense. Madman raised his eyebrows and looked at Mu Tianyang. How did the Golden Crow Temple end up in your hands? This, Mu Tianyang hesitated. Madman said, If you don't say it, I will inform the First Elder now. Mu Tianyang looked at Qin Feiyong. Qin Feiyong looked at Madman, his eyes flickering. After a long time, he said, Tell him. Mu Tianyang looked at Madman and said, Feng Yuan gave it to me? Feng Yuan? Madman frowned. Yes. Actually, the First Elder's son was killed by Feng Yuan, Mu Tianyang said. What? Madman clenched his fists, killing intent surging in his eyes. Do you have evidence? Mu Tianyang said, Isn't the Golden Crow Temple the best evidence? Damn that Feng Yuan. I won't forgive him. Madman was furious and immediately opened a teleportation altar. Where are you going? Qin Feiyong hurriedly pulled Madman and asked. Madman said, Nonsense. Of course I'm going to settle the score with Feng Yuan. Calm down, calm down. This matter isn't as simple as you think. Besides, are you Feng Yuan's match? Qin Feiyong said. Madman wanted to say something but stopped. Qin Feiyong said, It's not easy to kill Feng Yuan. You have to do it step by step and kill him with the final blow. You can't give him any chance to counterattack. Phew. Madman let out a long breath and nodded. You're right, I was too impulsive just now. Qin Feiyong also heaved a sigh of relief and asked suspiciously, Senior brother, what's your relationship with the First Elder? Why are you so irritable after hearing the cause of his son's death? This matter. We'll talk about it later. Let me tell you first. Although I agreed to accompany you to the Sky Dragon Sea, I won't help you do anything. Madman said. Okay, okay, okay. Qin Feiyang and the other two nodded. That was what he said now, but when it came to a crisis, could Madman escape? If he couldn't escape, he would naturally take action. Madman looked at Mu Tianyang and said, I'm going to the Golden Crow Temple too. If you want to go, do you think I dare to stop you? Mu Tianyang smiled bitterly. At least you know what's good for you, Madman said. Buzz. At this moment, Qin Feiyang's image crystal sounded. Who would send me a message at this time? Qin Feiyang was suspicious. He took out the image crystal and a shadow immediately appeared. Gongzi Feng? Brother Jiang, where are you? Gongzi Feng asked in an urgent tone, as if there was something important. What's wrong? Qin Feiyang was puzzled. Gongzi Feng said, I already know the whereabouts of Feng Wenhai. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed coldly and asked, Where? Longquan Mountain. Gongzi Feng said, Longquan Mountain? Qin Feiyang frowned. Hua Yi and Mu Tianyang were also suspicious. Longquan Mountain is located in a remote place in the southwest. It's a dozen altars away from our Nine-Heaven Palace. Gongzi Feng said, He actually went so far? Qin Feiyang was stunned. Madman suddenly said, If I remember correctly, Feng Zihan also stayed in this Longquan Mountain? Yes. When Feng Zihan comprehended the profound meaning of becoming a god, he was in Longquan Mountain. Gongzi Feng nodded. A cold light flashed in Huayi's eyes as he looked at Qin Feiyang and said, Brother Jiang, didn't you want to kill him? Now is a good chance. Qin Feiyang was silent. Gongzi Feng said again, There's one more thing. What is it? Qin Feiyang was suspicious. Gao Xiaohui is missing. Gongzi Feng said, How did she go missing? Qin Feiyang frowned. Sigh. Gao Xiaolong's death was a big blow to her. 2 days ago, she came to find me. I didn't know what to say, and she never appeared again. Gongzi Feng sighed. Of course you don't know what to say because Gao Xiaolong was killed by you. Qin Feiyang said angrily. Gongzi Feng lowered his head in shame. Qin Feiyang said, Let me tell you, you must find her for me, or I will take your little life. Yes. Gongzi Feng's eyes trembled as he hurriedly replied. Qin Feiyang said in a low voice, Give me the coordinates of Longquan Mountain. Without waiting for Gongzi Feng to speak, the madman said, I know the location of Longquan Mountain. Qin Feiyang was stunned. He looked at Gongzi Feng and said, Go find Gao Xiaohui immediately. Okay. Gongzi Feng nodded and the image disappeared. Qin Feiyang kept the image crystal and looked at the madman. We will listen to you this time. If you say go to Longquan Mountain, we will go. Of course. Since I can't kill Feng Yuan now, I will collect some interest first. A cold light flashed in the madman's eyes. Okay, let's go. Qin Feiyang nodded. The madman took out an altar. Wait, look over there. Is there a person? Hua Yi suddenly looked in the direction of the left coast. Qin Feiyang and the other two were stunned and looked over. On the coast, there was indeed a person standing on a reef. However, the distance was too far. Qin Feiyang and Mu Tianyang couldn't see clearly. The madman said, It's Gao Xiaohui. His cultivation was higher than Qin Feiyang, so he naturally saw further than Qin Feiyang. It's her? Why is she standing there alone? Could it be she can't take it anymore and wants to commit suicide? Mu Tianyang said in shock. Suicide? Qin Feiyang was shocked. He quickly teleported and rushed over. Mu Tianyang and the other two looked at each other and followed. Soon, Qin Feiyang rushed behind the reef. The reef stood on the surface of the sea, more than 10 meters tall. Gao Xiaohui stood alone on it. The wind messed up her hair, and her face looked extremely haggard. At this moment, she was like a helpless girl, staring at the sea in front of her, her eyes filled with confusion. And there was also a sadness that couldn't be dispelled from her body. It seems to be quite serious. Mu Tianyang transmitted his voice. The Gao family was exterminated, leaving only the siblings to rely on each other. And now, even her only brother died an unnatural death. In the face of such a blow, even a man might not be able to withstand it, let alone a woman like her. Qin Feiyang sighed inwardly. Mu Tianyang said. Then you go and persuade her. And Qin Feiyang nodded. But at this moment, Gao Shui smiled sadly, opened her hands, leaned forward, and slowly fell down. Damn, she really wants to commit suicide. Huai's face changed. Who knew how many sea beasts were lurking in the sea? With Gao Shaoyi's cultivation, once she fell into the sea, she would definitely die. Qin Feiyang's face also changed. He jumped and instantly landed behind Gao Shaoyi. Then, he grabbed Gao Shaoyi's wrist and pulled her back. And Gao Shaoyi was surprised and turned around. When she saw Qin Feiyang standing behind her, she was stunned. What are you doing? Qin Feiyang frowned. Gao Shaoyi lowered her head. Qin Feiyang said, I know Gao Xiaolong's death is very painful for you, but what you're doing, are you worthy of him? Then what can I do? In the past, although I lost my family, at least Big Brother was with me. But now, Big Brother has left me. What's the point of me living alone in this world? Gao Shui roared. I'm very sorry about your Big Brother's death, but I believe your Big Brother didn't want you to do this. I understand the feeling of losing a loved one, but those who are still alive should live well. This is the best way to repay the debt. Qin Feiyang sighed. Gao Shui shook her head. But enough? There's no hurdle you can't cross. After all, in a person's life and death is a process you have to go through. Qin Feiyang smiled comfortingly. Big Brother Jiang. Gao Shaoyi threw herself into Qin Feiyang's arms and cried. Although Gao Xiaolong isn't here, as long as you don't mind, I'll be your big brother in the future. Qin Feiyang patted Gao Shaoyi's back and smiled. But hearing this, Gao Shaoyi's body stiffened. Only Big Brother? Chapter 2154. What's wrong? Are you unhappy? Qin Feiyang asked with a smile, because he also noticed Gao Shaoyi's abnormality. Gao Shui wanted to say something but hesitated. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, All right, they are still watching, don't cry. They? Gao Shui was stunned. Leaving Qin Feiyang's arms, turned her head, and found that Mu Tianyang and the other two were also there. Especially when she saw Madman, a trace of reverence immediately crept up her face. Am I so scary? Madman grumbled in dissatisfaction. If you are not scary, who is? Even if it is a heavenless disciple. Seeing you is like seeing a devil, let alone an outer disciple like her. Mu Tianyang laughed secretly. Madman put on a fake smile. Brother Jiang, there are still important things to do. Hurry up, Huai reminded. Qin Feiyang nodded, lowered his head and looked at Gao Shui, saying, Hurry up and go back. Don't do anything stupid. Where are you going? Can I go with you? Gao Shui asked. No, because it is very dangerous. Qin Feiyang shook his head. Gao Shui couldn't help but feel a trace of disappointment. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, I will give you some more soul stones. Go back and cultivate hard, and when you become stronger in the future, no one will dare to bully you. No need. There are still many soul stones left that you gave us last time. Gao Shui shook her head. All right then. Qin Feiyang nodded, opened a teleportation altar that led directly to the heaven stairway, and said with a smile, Then hurry up and go back. Try not to come to the Sky Dragon Sea in the future. It is too dangerous. Then you have to be careful. Gao Shui warned, and then nodded to Mu Tianyang and the other two, and then took a deep look at Qin Feiyang, and turned to walk up the altar. Very soon, Gao Shui was teleported away. Mu Tianyang joked, Brother Jiang, your luck with women is enviable. Luck in love affairs? Qin Feiyang was taken aback. Mu Tianyang was stunned. You didn't see that Gao Shui was interested in you? Interested in me? Impossible. Qin Feiyang frowned. Hui smiled and said, Brother Mu is not talking nonsense. Gao Shui does have feelings for you. I can see it too. Madman nodded. Ugh. Qin Feiyang looked at the three of them in astonishment. Could it be that this was really the case? No. Towards Gao Shui, he was more sympathetic and had nothing to do with feelings. If what the three of them said was true, then this matter had to be explained to Gao Shui as soon as possible. Otherwise, she would definitely sink deeper and deeper. The deeper he fell, the more painful it would be. Anyway, he couldn't allow this matter to continue developing. Let's go to Longquan Mountain. Madman also activated the altar. The four of them walked up one after another. Longquan Mountain. Although not many people knew about the Nine Heavens Palace and Sky Dragon City, they were still quite famous in the area. This was because there were many powerful beasts in Longquan Mountain. Their cultivation was basically between the War Saint and the War King. In the nearby villages, the average strength was only at the War Master level. Therefore, in the eyes of the locals, Longquan Mountain was also a forbidden area. Longquan Mountain, Peak. There was a quiet and elegant small courtyard. Around the courtyard, there was a 1-meter-high wooden fence. In the middle, there was a 2-story wooden building. Flowers bloomed all around. The air was clear, and the environment was beautiful. It was indeed a good place to cultivate in seclusion. At this moment, on the second floor's balcony, a middle-aged man stood facing the wind, his face filled with anger and killing intent. It was Feng Wenhai. Feng Zihan had already told him about the fat woman's death through sound transmission. To him, this was undoubtedly adding fuel to the fire. His hatred for Qin Feiyang had also reached an unprecedented level. Feng Yuan had very few people to begin with. And now, Feng Zijuan, Yin Hui and the others were all dead. In the entire Feng family, only he, Feng Yuan, and Feng Zihan were left. This was to let their Feng family have no descendants. Zhang Haoyan, Gong Zifeng, Hua Yi, Mu Tianyang, and Madman, just you wait. Sooner or later, there will be a day when I will find all of you to settle the old and new grudges. Feng Wenhai was getting angrier and angrier, to the point of going crazy. Hee, I'm afraid you won't have the chance. Suddenly, a cold laugh sounded out. Feng Wenhai was shocked. He raised his head and saw 4 young men standing silently in the void above him. It was Qin Feiyang's group of 4. Feng Wenhai's expression immediately changed as he asked in surprise, "When did you guys come?" "Not long ago. Seeing that you were so engrossed in your thoughts, we didn't want to disturb you." Hua Yi teased. Feng Wenhai's heart sank and said, "Didn't you guys go to the Sky Dragon Sea? How did you find this place? And how did you know I was here?" "In the past, when Feng Zihan was in seclusion here, I came here. As for how I knew you were here, this is all thanks to your good son," Madman said. "Gong Zifeng?" Feng Wenhai said in a deep voice. Madman sneered. "Other than him? Do you have any other sons now?" "This damn little bastard." Feng Wenhai was furious. He swept his eyes around Qin Feiyang and the others and asked, "Just the 4 of you?" "Yes, just the 4 of us." Qin Feiyang nodded. "What are you guys doing here?" Feng Wenhai said. Qin Feiyang said, "Don't you know what we're here for?" "Ha." Feng Wenhai laughed, laughing extremely brightly. "What are you laughing at?" Mu Tianyang asked curiously. "I'm laughing at your stupidity. With just the strength of the 4 of you, you dare to come here to kill me? Perfect. Since you guys took the initiative to come to me, then let's settle this. Today, none of you will be able to leave Dragon Spring Mountain alive." Feng Wenhai laughed, his divine might erupting. "What cultivation level?" Qin Feiyang asked secretly. "Great success." Madman's face was full of disdain. Qin Feiyang and the others were stunned. A great success paragon god was actually so disdainful? The 3 of them looked at each other and tactfully retreated to the side, leaving the battlefield to Madman. Boom! Feng Wenhai soared into the sky and punched at Madman. His speed was so fast that even Qin Feiyang and the others couldn't catch it. Madman didn't seem to be able to react in time and was hit by Feng Wenhai's punch. He immediately spat out a mouthful of blood and flew out like a meteorite. If you hadn't been idle all these years, your cultivation might have surpassed mine by now. Unfortunately, you've wasted 7,000 to 8,000 years. Little bastard, today is the day you die. Feng Wenhai's face was full of contempt as he unleashed his extreme speed and punched Madman's chest again. With a cracking sound, his bones broke and his internal organs were damaged. What's going on? Why isn't he fighting back? Mu Tianyang frowned. I'm not sure. Qin Feiyang and Hua Yi shook their heads. They looked at Madman again. Although he was heavily injured by Feng Wenhai, His expression didn't change at all. No, there was a change. It became more and more sinister. It was as if a sleeping beast was gradually awakening. What's wrong? Aren't you usually very arrogant in Nine Heaven Palace? Why aren't you moving now? Is this all you've got? Feng Wenhai laughed and stepped forward to slap Madman's chest again. Puff. Madman spat out blood and smashed into the ground below. A giant mountain was directly flattened. What is he doing? Mu Tianyang raised his eyebrows. Qin Feiyang said, Anyway, we can't help. Let's just watch quietly. A battle between paragon gods wasn't something they could interfere in. Whoosh! Feng Wenhai became more and more arrogant. He flashed down and grabbed Madman's neck, twisting it. Fight back? Why are you silent? Is it because you see that I'm too strong and don't have the courage to fight back? Haha, before in Nine Heaven Palace, I tolerated you because of Grand Elder's face. Do you really think you're invincible? In my eyes, you're just a piece of trash. Feng Wenhai was disdainful to the extreme as he punched Madman's face again and again. Not long later, Madman's face was unrecognizable and blood flowed out. His entire person looked extremely miserable, but his expression became colder and colder, like two sharp blades, making Feng Wenhai's heart couldn't help but begin to panic. Since you're not going to fight back, then die for me. Feng Wenhai's eyes surged with killing intent. On his fist, divine power emerged, exuding a destructive aura as it blasted toward Madman's head. This blow was enough to kill, but at this moment, Madman suddenly raised his arm and grabbed Feng Wenhai's fist. An invisible force was like a torrent, toppling mountains and overturning seas. Kacha! Feng Wenhai's fist actually emitted the crisp sound of bones cracking. Such a terrifying power! Feng Wenhai's expression immediately changed as he hurriedly shook Madman away, his expression full of disbelief. The physical strength displayed by Madman was actually a bit stronger than his. Madman ignored the injuries on his body and his face that was constantly bleeding. His cold gaze was like a death god staring at Feng Wenhai. Do you know that Feng Yuan killed my adoptive father? Adoptive father? Feng Wenhai was taken aback. Qin Feiyang and the other two looked at each other, their faces full of suspicion. Madman said word by word, It's the son of First Elder. What? First Elder's son is your adoptive father? Feng Wenhai was shocked. Qin Feiyang and the other two also looked at each other. Adoptive father? Didn't that mean that Madman was the adoptive son of First Elder's son? No wonder Madman would be so angry when he heard the real cause of death of First Elder's son. So it was because of this relationship. But looking at Feng Wenhai's reaction, other than First Elder, no one should know the relationship between these two. You are his adoptive son? How is this possible? Feng Wenhai was extremely shocked. Adoptive father and adoptive son? It was simply too unbelievable. Madman did not explain and said gloomily, Answer my question. Ridiculous. Your adoptive father was kind to my father. How could my father harm him? Don't slander me. Feng Wenhai shouted angrily, but his expression was a little guilty. It seems that you won't tell the truth. Since that's the case, then there's no point in keeping you. Want to see my strength? Fine. I'll fulfill your wish now. Madman smiled sinisterly as a monstrous aura suddenly erupted. Chapter 2155. I know that over the years, the Great Elder has given you a lot of trump cards, but I also have a lot. Moreover, the gap between our cultivations is a chasm that you will never be able to cross. Today, you must die. Not only will you die, but they will also die. Feng Wenhai pointed at Qin Feiyang and the other two and laughed loudly. Madman licked the blood from the corner of his mouth and said, Soon, you will take back those words. Haha. Feng Wenhai laughed wildly. Blood Demon Domain. Open. Madman said word by word, and as the last word blurted out, a monstrous blood light emerged. That blood light was like the sign of the birth of a demon, emitting a terrifying murderous aura. Following closely, the blood light was like a tide, drowning in all directions, forming a blood barrier that covered tens of thousands of miles. Qin Feiyang and the others were also inside the barrier. Immediately, they felt a strange force drilling into their bodies. The next moment, a terrifying scene appeared. Their cultivations began to plummet. Perfect war god. Great success war god. Small success war god. Initial war god. It didn't stop until they fell to the pseudo-god realm. In other words, the blood-colored barrier had caused their cultivation to drop by 5 minor levels. What kind of divine art was this? It was too terrifying. Looking at Feng Wenhai again, he also turned pale with fright, because his cultivation was also plummeting. Small success paragon god. Initial paragon god. Half-step paragon god. Perfect divine lord. Perfect divine lord. He also fell by 5 realms in a row. What the hell is going on? Feng Wenhai's face was full of shock. Although he didn't have much contact with Madman, he knew a lot about Madman's methods. In his impression, Madman didn't have such methods at all. Madman sneered. Do you think that Laozi has been idle all these years? Feng Wenhai was surprised. More than 7,000 years ago, Laozi created the first move of the Blood Demon Seal. More than 6,000 years ago, Laozi created the second move, Blood Demon Roar. More than 5,000 years ago, Laozi created the third move, Bloodthirsty Demon King. More than 4,000 years ago, I created the fourth style, which is what you see now, the Blood Demon Domain. And 1,000 years ago, I created the fifth move. However, you will never have the chance to see the fifth move. And in the past few thousand years, I've raised all 5 styles of the Blood Demon to the legendary level, Madman said proudly. What? There's a fifth move? Feng Wenhai trembled both physically and mentally. If the fourth style was already so terrifying, then how shocking would the fifth style be? I have to say, creating a divine incantation is truly a difficult task. However, I did it. And you? Let alone creating a legendary grade deity art? I'm afraid you can't even raise the level of a deity art. Now tell me, what qualifications do you have to be so arrogant in front of me? Madman roared. With a single step, he arrived in front of Feng Wenhai and punched Feng Wenhai's chest. Ah! Feng Wenhai let out a blood-curdling scream as blood spurted from his mouth. With his cultivation dropping by 5 realms, there was no way he could continue fighting. He turned around and fled. As long as he left the realm of the Blood Devil, his cultivation base would be restored. However, not only did the realm of the Blood Devil cause his cultivation base to plummet, but it also suppressed his speed to that of a perfect divine lord. How could the speed of a perfect divine lord compare to Madman, who was a half-step divine lord? Madman wasn't in a hurry. He slowly followed behind Feng Wenhai step by step, and the realm of the Blood Devil was actually moving along with Madman. In other words, no matter how Feng Wenhai escaped, as long as Madman followed him, Feng Wenhai would always be trapped in the realm of the Blood Devil. At this moment, Feng Wenhai was burning with anxiety. With his cultivation suppressed and his speed suppressed, how could he escape the realm of the Blood Devil? The most important thing was, Madman was following behind him, ready to end his life at any time. Don't chase, I beg you. I'll tell you. I'll tell you everything. Your adoptive father was killed by my father. Feng Wenhai roared. He was panicking to the extreme. Madman's eyes were filled with killing intent as he turned to look at Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang understood and took out an image crystal. Madman shouted, Say it again. Be more specific and detailed. It was my father who was greedy for the position of Hall Master of the Resource Hall. He killed your adoptive father in the Sky Dragon Sea and framed the Deputy Hall Master of the Treasure Pavilion. The people who came with him were also killed by my father. It's all true. My father told me personally, Feng Wenhai roared. He didn't notice at all that this scene had been recorded by Qin Feiyang. Finally, I got the evidence. Qin Feiyang laughed and put away the image crystal. Now, Feng Yuan's time of death has come. But what I'm looking forward to the most is what kind of expression he will have when he sees that his own son betrayed him. Hua Yi's face was full of ridicule. However, Mu Tianyang frowned and remained silent. Feng Wenhai shouted, I've already said it, just let me go. Let you go? Madman smiled sinisterly and grabbed Feng Wenhai's head. Haven't you heard of the saying, the son pays for the father's debt? Don't. Feng Wenhai roared at the top of his lungs. But it was useless. Madman's 5 fingers suddenly exerted force, and Feng Wenhai's head exploded on the spot like a watermelon. Flesh and blood flew everywhere. His divine soul was also instantly destroyed. Terrifying, truly terrifying. Hui muttered. Qin Feiyang's eyes were also filled with deep fear. Last time in the land of the far west, he felt that Madman didn't use his full strength. In the end, it was true, and it was countless times more terrifying than he imagined. The Blood Demon domain had dropped 5 realms. If it was any other opponent, it would be a disaster. Of course, to Qin Feiyang, Madman's Blood Demon domain couldn't pose a threat to him, because he had the Eye of Heaven that could copy all attacks. However, to others, the Madman was an opponent that made them despair. Adoptive father, I have already found the person who harmed you back then. I will make him pay a heavy price soon. You should feel very gratified in the underworld. Madman muttered, and the Blood Demon domain disappeared. Then, holding Feng Wenhai's headless corpse, he turned to look at Qin Feiyang and the other 2 and said, "Return to the 9 Heavens Palace." His tone was filled with a shocking, murderous aura. Qin Feiyang and Huai looked at each other. Since they had the evidence, they could indeed fight back. But it was also a little unexpected. Originally, they just wanted to collect some interest, but they didn't expect Feng Wenhai to be so cowardly and actually confess everything. It seemed that they could only wait until this matter was settled before going to the Sky Dragon Sea. Hui suddenly looked at Mu Tianyang and said suspiciously, "Brother Mu Tianyang, what are you thinking about?" Not saying a word. Qin Feiyang was taken aback and also looked at Mu Tianyang. Seeing Mu Tianyang lowering his head, he seemed to be hesitating. What's wrong? Qin Feiyang thought. Mu Tianyang glanced at Madman and transmitted his voice to Qin Feiyang and Huai. Have you thought of a problem? If we get rid of Feng Yuan now, how will we find out the whereabouts of the Vein of Soul? Qin Feiyang thought, even if Feng Yuan is dead, isn't there still the next Hall Master of the Resource Hall? But none of us know who the next Hall Master of the Resource Hall will be. Is this person easy to deal with? Will he trust us? In short, it wasn't easy for me to gain Feng Yuan's trust. If I kill him now, I will feel a little uncomfortable. Mu Tianyang transmitted his voice. I can understand your feelings. After all, for the Vein of Soul, you worked so hard for so long and suffered so many grievances. But I don't think Feng Yuan will tell you the location of the Vein of Soul. You know very well in your heart that once we are killed, Feng Yuan will immediately get rid of you. Moreover, look at Madman now. Will he listen to us? Definitely not. Qin Feiyang thought. Mu Tianyang pondered for a while and nodded. All right, let's kill him first. As for the Vein of Soul, we can't rush it anyway. Moreover, we don't lack soul stones for the time being. We can think about it later. Then let's go. Qin Feiyang smiled. The 3 of them flew toward Madman. Madman looked at the 3 of them suspiciously and said, "What are you guys whispering about?" "Nothing." The 3 of them shook their heads and smiled. "It's definitely nothing good." Madman rolled his eyes at the 3 of them, but he wasn't in the mood to get to the bottom of it. He opened a teleportation altar. Whoosh! The 4 of them jumped up one after another. Chapter 2156. Ninth Heaven Palace. The ancient sky stairway reached the clouds, and the Ninth Heaven Palace was suspended in the clouds. Under the sunlight, it was like a fairyland. Usually in the morning and afternoon, there would be a large number of disciples coming out of the Ninth Heaven Palace. They were all there to gain experience. In groups of 2s and 3s, everyone looked energetic and full of expectations. They were looking forward to a good harvest. Swish! Suddenly, 4 figures descended on the mountain peak below the sky stairway. And what a strong, evil aura and smell of blood. It's Madman, and Zhang Haoyan, Hua Yi, and Mu Tianyang. Where did they come from? Look, Madman is actually carrying a headless corpse in his hand. Who is that? Seeing Qin Feiyang and the other 3 appear, the disciples on the mountain peak and the sky stairway all stopped, their faces full of surprise. The white-haired old man guarding the sky stairway also opened his eyes and looked at the 4 people. But in the end, he didn't say anything and closed his eyes again. With Madman leading the way, Qin Feiyong and the other two followed closely behind, stepping up the sky stairway step by step. Feng Wenhai's corpse was still dripping blood, dyeing the sky stairway red. The disciples in front all made way. Everyone's expression was full of fear towards Madman, and no one dared to open their mouth to ask. He was like a demon king, making people afraid. Don't you think that the figure of the corpse seems a bit familiar? Familiar? Without a head, you can't tell who it is? But what is certain is that this person definitely provoked Madman and was killed by him. But why would he bring the corpse back to the Ninth Heaven Palace? Could it be that this corpse is related to the Ninth Heaven Palace? After the four of them left, the disciples immediately began to discuss in low voices. Hall Master. The Law Enforcement Hall. A woman in a black dress hurriedly ran into the hall. Sitting on the throne above, Shangguan Fenglan, who was handling affairs, looked at the woman in black suspiciously and said, Wang Yun, why are you in such a panic? Madman and Jiang Haoyan came back with a headless corpse. Wang Yun said, What? Headless corpse? What do they want to do now? Shangguan Fenglan suddenly stood up. I don't know. However, I heard that the madman is very terrifying now. His baleful aura has never been seen before. Wang Yun said. Shangguan Fenglan frowned and asked, Where are they now? Wang Yun said, They seem to be heading straight for the Great Council Hall. He even went to the conference hall? Shangguan Fenglan was stunned and muttered, Looks like it's not a small matter. I have to go and take a look. After saying that, she put down the matters in her hands and flew towards the conference hall. 9 Heavens Palace's Palace Master level and above, go to the Great Meeting Hall immediately. I have something important to say. At the same time, Madman's shout resounded like thunder, spreading throughout the entire 9 Heaven Palace. Lunatic? What is that bastard trying to do now? You really don't let me be at ease even for a day. Hearing this, all the leaders gathered in the conference hall with a helpless mood. Conference hall? Shangguan Fenglan was the first to arrive. Glancing at the empty hall, she didn't go in. Instead, she stood in the square outside. Whoosh! A short while later, one figure after another streaked across the sky. Among them was Feng Yuan. Someone asked, Why did this lunatic suddenly call us here? I don't know, but in front of us, he doesn't dare to mess around. I think there really is something big. All the leaders were discussing, but Feng Yuan kept his head down and remained silent. There was a trace of suspicion between his brows. Didn't these people go to the Sky Dragon Sea early in the morning? Why did they come back? Swish. Not long after, another old figure appeared. Greetings, Grand Elder. All the leaders hurriedly bowed. Go in. The Grand Elder smiled, walked into the conference hall, and sat on the chair at the top. Grand Elder, do you know the purpose of Madman calling us here? Everyone also took their seats, then looked at the Grand Elder and asked, I'm not sure either. The Grand Elder shook his head and looked at Shangguan Fenglan. Don't look at me. I don't know either. Shangguan Fenglan smiled bitterly. The Grand Elder smiled and said, Since no one knows, then it's fun. I think he's just messing around. Grand Elder, it's not that I want to say this, but you usually spoil him too much and spoil him, Feng Yuan said unhappily. Don't worry, whether he's messing around or not, we'll know later. The Grand Elder smiled. A moment later, swish, Qin Feiyong and the other 3 arrived outside the conference hall. They really brought a corpse? Shangguan Fenglan was speechless. Wait a minute. Suddenly, there was a trace of surprise in her eyes as she looked at Feng Wenhai's corpse. Why did this corpse look a little familiar? At the same time, the other leaders were also looking at the corpse suspiciously, feeling that it was a little familiar. But at the same time, Feng Yuan suddenly stood up and stared at Feng Wenhai's corpse. Although there was no head, he recognized Feng Wenhai's clothes at a glance, because just last night, he had sent a message to Feng Wenhai. At this moment, the clothes on this corpse were exactly the same as the clothes Feng Wenhai wore yesterday. The Grand Elder noticed Feng Yuan's reaction and asked suspiciously, Hall Master Feng Yuan, do you know who this corpse is? I'm not sure. Feng Yuan shook his head and returned to his chair, muttering, This must be a coincidence. Outside the door, The four of them looked at each other, then grabbed Feng Wenhai's corpse and entered the conference hall. Lunatic, what are you doing? This is the conference hall. How can you bring a corpse in? Hurry up and throw it out. Shangguan Fenglan shouted. This corpse is today's main character. How can I throw it out? Lunatic smiled coldly. Hearing this, the doubts on the faces of the leaders were even stronger. The Grand Elder looked at Lunatic and asked suspiciously, Then who is this corpse? Lunatic said, He is, wait. Qin Feiyang suddenly spoke. Everyone looked at Qin Feiyang again. Lunatic also turned his head and looked at Qin Feiyang suspiciously. Qin Feiyang said, We still lack 2 people. Who? Lunatic asked. Qin Feiyang looked at the Grand Elder and bowed. These 2 people's identities are quite special. I hope that the Grand Elder can approve them to enter the 9 Heavens Palace. Who? The Grand Elder asked. Please allow this disciple to keep you in suspense. Qin Feiyang said. You brat. The Grand Elder shook his head and laughed. All right, as you wish. Thank you, Grand Elder. Qin Feiyang bowed and thanked him, then took out the image crystal. Buzz. Not long after, an old man's silhouette appeared. What? It's actually him. The leaders were suddenly in an uproar. The Grand Elder also stood up, his face full of anger, because that shadow was the Vice Pavilion Master of the Treasure Pavilion. The Vice Pavilion Master also noticed the Grand Elder and the others, and his expression was somewhat gloomy. Old Senior. Qin Feiyang bowed. The Vice Pavilion Master retracted his gaze and looked at Qin Feiyang, puzzled. Little friend, what are you doing? Qin Feiyang didn't talk nonsense and went straight to the point. Old Senior, please come to the 9 Heavens Palace immediately. The Vice Pavilion Master was stunned. Qin Feiyang said with a smile, You definitely understand. Hearing Qin Feiyang's words, a cold light flashed in the Vice Pavilion Master's eyes, but he still hesitated. Qin Feiyang said, Don't worry, the Grand Elder has already approved you to enter the 9 Heavens Palace. The Vice Pavilion Master looked at the Grand Elder in surprise and nodded. All right, this old man will be there immediately. We're in the conference hall. Qin Feiyang said again, and the Vice Pavilion Master responded, and the shadow disappeared. Zhang Haoyan, you're too presumptuous. Do you know that the Vice Pavilion Master of the Treasure Pavilion is the executioner who killed the Grand Elder's son? He is the enemy of our 9 Heavens Palace. Grand Elder, this brat is too presumptuous. He might even be a spy that the Treasure Pavilion placed in our 9 Heavens Palace. Grand Elder, please kill him immediately. Feng Yuan shouted. The other big shots were also furious. Allowing the Vice Pavilion Master of the Treasure Pavilion to enter the 9 Heavens Palace, wasn't this deliberately embarrassing the Grand Elder? Looking at the Grand Elder again. At this moment, he was looking at Qin Feiyang with a gloomy face. Shangguan Fenglan saw that the situation wasn't good and sent a message. Grand Elder, please calm down. Zhang Haoyan isn't a reckless person. He must have a reason for letting the Vice Pavilion Master of the Treasure Pavilion come to the 9 Heavens Palace. Let's wait and see. The Grand Elder took a deep breath and returned to his seat. Zhang Haoyan, you better give this old man a satisfactory explanation. Otherwise, even if Madman protects you, you won't be able to walk out of this hall today. Qin Feiyang said respectfully, Don't worry, I guarantee you'll be satisfied. That better be the case. After the Grand Elder finished speaking, he closed his eyes as if to calm the anger in his heart. Shangguan Fenglan also breathed a sigh of relief and asked, Zhang Haoyan, didn't you say there were 2 people? Where's the other one? This disciple will inform him now. Qin Feiyang put away the image crystal and closed his eyes. Huh. Everyone looked at Qin Feiyang in astonishment. Wasn't he going to inform him? Why did he put away the image crystal and even close his eyes? What the hell was this kid doing? About 10 breaths later, Qin Feiyang opened his eyes and smiled. This disciple has already informed him. He's on his way to the 9 Heavens Palace. The group of big shots looked at each other. Already informed? With his eyes closed, how could he inform the other party? Qin Feiyang said, This person's identity is more special than the Vice Pavilion Master of the Treasure Pavilion. So please don't ask for the time being. What? More special than the Vice Pavilion Master? Could he be the Pavilion Master of the Treasure Pavilion? Everyone was surprised. He's not the Pavilion Master of the Treasure Pavilion. His identity is actually very ordinary, but his appearance will bring everyone a surprise. Qin Feiyong smiled. Surprise? Now that you mention it, I'm really looking forward to it, Shangguan Fenglan said. Qin Feiyong smiled and fell silent, but his eyes were always on Feng Yuan. Feng Yuan also kept an eye on Feng Wenhai's body. Why were their clothes exactly the same? Could he be Wenhai? No. Absolutely impossible. Wenhai was hiding in Longquan Mountain. No one except him and Feng Zihan knew about it. Moreover, even if these people found Longquan Mountain, with their cultivation, it was impossible to kill Wenhai. This must be a coincidence. Chapter 2157. The conference hall fell into a deathly silence for the time being. Wang. Suddenly, within the hall, the sound of the image crystal vibrating could be heard. Everyone looked at the Great Elder. The reason for that was because the voice had come from the First Elder. The Great Elder took out the image crystal. The image of a white-haired old man appeared. Looking at the white-haired old man, all the big shots present had a respectful expression. The white-haired old man looked at the Great Elder and asked, "Did you approve the Vice Pavilion Master to come to Nine Heavens Palace?" The Great Elder nodded and said, "There's another person." Who? The white-haired old man was suspicious. "I don't know. You can ask him." The Great Elder shook his head, and the image crystal turned to face Qin Feiyong. "Greetings, old senior. The other person should be here soon. When the time comes, I'll have to trouble you to ask him. If he says that I asked him to come, then please let him enter Nine Heavens Palace." Qin Feiyong said respectfully. "Okay." The white-haired old man nodded, and then the image disappeared. "Look, the stairway to heaven is warning." "Who is he? He doesn't seem to be from our Nine Heavens Palace." "You don't even know him?" "Let me tell you, he's the Vice Pavilion Master of the Treasure Pavilion." "What? He's the Vice Pavilion Master of the Treasure Pavilion? Oh my God. He's a famous big shot in the northern region. I didn't expect that today. I would be lucky enough to see his face with my own eyes." The appearance of the Vice Pavilion Master, without any suspense, caused another huge uproar in Nine Heavens Palace. Not long after the Vice Pavilion Master entered Nine Heavens Palace, a middle-aged man appeared on the mountain peak. The middle-aged man stood at the bottom of the stairway and looked at Nine Heavens Palace with a hesitant expression. "You are Gu Yong?" The white-haired old man opened his eyes and looked at the middle-aged man in surprise. "Greetings, Lord." Gu Yong bowed and said, "I didn't expect Lord to remember a small character like me." The white-haired old man asked, "Zhang Haoyan asked you to come, right?" And Gu Yong nodded. "Then go up," the white-haired old man said and closed his eyes. Sigh. If it's a blessing, it's not a curse. If it's a curse, it can't be avoided. Gu Yong sighed deeply and stepped onto the stairway to heaven. Conference hall. Whoosh. With a piercing sound, the Deputy Pavilion Master landed on the square outside the gate. The Deputy Pavilion Masters all looked over, their expressions extremely unfriendly. The Great Elder also opened his eyes, 2 rays of cold light shooting out from his eyes. "Old Senior." Qin Feiyong went up to him. "Thank you for your hard work." The Vice Pavilion Master laughed in a hoarse voice. "I'm fine." Qin Feiyong waved his hand and helped the Deputy Pavilion Master into the conference hall. Feng Yuan raged, "Great Elder, look at his respectful attitude. He must be a spy planted by the Treasure Pavilion in our Nine Heavens Palace." "Spies? Feng Yuan, do you really want to get rid of me so badly?" Qin Feiyong sneered. Feng Yuan said, "What I said is the truth. Don't worry. The truth will naturally become clear later," Qin Feiyong said. The Deputy Pavilion Master glanced at Feng Yuan, then looked at the Great Elder sitting opposite him and said, "I didn't expect you and I would meet again. Do you think this old man wants to see you?" The Great Elder said expressionlessly. The Deputy Pavilion Master said indifferently, "To be honest, this old man doesn't want to see you either, but there are some things that must be resolved." The Great Elder raised his eyebrows and looked at Shangguan Fenglan. Give him a chair, lest he goes out and says that our Nine Heavens Palace bullied a disabled person like him. No need. This old man doesn't deserve it. The deputy pavilion master waved his hand and took out a simple wooden chair from his yin and yang ring, then sat upright on it. Although one of his legs was crippled, his invisible aura made the various authorities present feel ashamed of their inferiority. Qin Feiyang glanced at the deputy pavilion master and the great elder. It seemed that even if the truth was revealed, these two old men would still find it difficult to tolerate each other. Putting the great elder aside. As for the deputy pavilion master, it was the great elder who made him suffer all these years. And his leg was also crippled because of the great elder. Just imagine. After being wronged like this, who would easily forgive the other party? Soon, Guyong also appeared outside the council hall. What? It's actually him. Feng Yuan's body immediately stiffened. He seems to be Guyong? How could it be him? The other leaders were also bewildered. How is it? Lords, is this a surprise? Qin Feiyang asked with a smile. This is a shock. Shangguan Fenglan looked at Qin Feiyang speechlessly. For some people, it is indeed a shock. Qin Feiyang chuckled and glanced at Feng Yuan. Hearing this, Shangguan Fenglan finally understood what Qin Feiyang was going to do. He was going to make a move on Feng Yuan. At the same time, Gu Yong entered the hall, looked at Feng Yuan in fear, and walked to Qin Feiyang's side. Standing next to Qin Feiyang, he felt a lot more at ease. Then, he bowed to the First Elder and the other leaders. Greetings, First Elder. Greetings, Lords. The Great Elder also vaguely realized Qin Feiyang's purpose. He glanced at Gu Yong and the Deputy Pavilion Master, then looked at Qin Feiyang and Madman and said, Now speak. Qin Feiyang sneered, kicked Feng Wenhai's body in front of Feng Yuan, and said, Feng Yuan, do you really not recognize your son? Feng Yuan's son? He is Feng Wenhai. The leaders were shocked. Hearing Madman's words, Feng Yuan lowered his head to look at Feng Wenhai's body, and his face was pale. He had denied it in his heart more than once, but he didn't expect it to really be Feng Wenhai. The Great Elder glanced at Feng Yuan and transmitted his voice. Feng Lan, you were right. Zhang Haoyan is a character. The show is finally about to begin. And it's just that I don't understand. What does this have to do with the Deputy Pavilion Master? Shangguan Fenglan was full of doubts. This is also the problem this old man is puzzled about. The Great Elder thought, Why? Why did you kill Wenhai? Feng Yuan came back to his senses and immediately stared at Qin Feiyang and the others, roaring angrily. Shouldn't he be killed? Qin Feiyang asked. I admit that he did something wrong to you in the past, but those things have already ended. And ever since he was expelled from Nine Heavens Palace, he has been reflecting, blaming himself, and feeling guilty. He's already like this. Why won't you let him go? Feng Yuan roared hysterically. Reflecting? Blaming himself? Feeling guilty? Qin Feiyang's face was full of mockery. How could he not know what kind of person Feng Wenhai was? How could he reflect? Not to mention blaming himself and feeling guilty. Plop. Feng Yuan knelt in front of the Great Elder and shouted, These little bastards are simply too lawless. Great Elder, you must uphold justice for me. Don't worry. This old man will get to the bottom of this matter. The Great Elder comforted Feng Yuan, then looked at Qin Feiyang and the others and said, Speak. Why did you kill Feng Wenhai? Because he deserved to die. Not only did he deserve to die, but Feng Yuan also deserved to die. Frenzy roared, his eyes red. The powerhouses were surprised. The Great Elder was also stunned. After being together for so long, this was the first time he saw Frenzy so angry. What secrets were hidden in this? Qin Feiyang said, Senior brother Frenzy, calm down. Let me handle it. Okay. Frenzy nodded. Qin Feiyang looked at Feng Yuan and said, Old bastard, you've done a lot of shady things over the years. You want to slander this old man? This old man has done righteous things. I'm not afraid of your slander. Why don't you tell everyone what I've done that can't be exposed? Feng Yuan sneered. You used your power, embezzled public funds, and cheated for personal gains. That's your first crime. You added fuel to the fire behind the scenes, bribing people from the law enforcement hall with the intention of letting Feng Wenhai and Yin Hui take over Shangguan Fenglan. That's your second crime. As the hall master of the resource hall, as the person in charge of Nine Heavens Palace, you should take care of us disciples, but you repeatedly instigated Feng Wenhai, Jin Yunchang, and Jian Fatso to frame us, wanting to kill us. That's your third crime. You used the trust of others to harm your fellow disciples, deceiving your superiors and subordinates. That's your fourth crime. And there are too many, I can't even count them. You're scum. You don't deserve to live in this world. Qin Feiyang shouted. Haha, I cheated for personal gains? Took over Shangguan Fenglan? Framed you? Harmed fellow disciples? Your imagination is really rich. Okay, even if what you said is true, where's the evidence? Take out the evidence. Don't tell me you want Guyong to testify. Who doesn't know that Guyong is now your man? Who will believe what he says? Feng Yuan's face was full of ridicule, but in his heart, he was shocked. She had actually investigated his background so thoroughly without anyone noticing. Guyong was once your confidant. Why can't his words be trusted? Qin Feiyang asked. That was in the past. Now that he's your man, he will naturally collude with you to slander this old man. Feng Yuan sneered. Is that so? I heard from Guyong that you have an account book in your hands. In this account book, there is evidence of your corruption over the years. I think this account book should be with you now. Qin Feiyang smiled. Guyong said, it's in his Qi Si, stored in a box. Damn it. Feng Yuan cursed, his heart suddenly panicking. What's wrong? Are you starting to panic? Do you know why I asked Gongzi Feng to tell you that Guyong has been killed by me when I was in prison? Qin Feiyang joked. Why? Feng Yuan said in a deep voice. The chief elder and the others also looked at Qin Feiyang suspiciously. Chapter 2158. It's very simple. It's for the account book. If I tell you that Guyong is still alive, then you definitely won't keep the account book with you. Because with your intelligence, you can imagine that Guyong would tell me about this. Once this matter blows up, the first elder will definitely search you. On the contrary, when you know that Guyong is dead, you will let down your guard. Because there is no place safer than keeping it with you. Qin Feiyang said. Smart. Feng Yuan gave him a thumbs up, but he was not worried at all. He laughed and said, but this old man still has the same words. If you are upright, you are not afraid of a body search. First elder, please search. Huh. Qin Feiyang was stunned. He actually took the initiative to ask for a body search? The first elder glanced at Qin Feiyang, then looked at Shangguan Fenglan and said, search? Yes. Shangguan Fenglan nodded, got up, and released her divine sense to cover Feng Yuan. Mu Tianyang transmitted his voice and said, this old fart is also too calm and collected. He is indeed too calm. Is the account book not with him? Maybe it has been destroyed by him? Qin Feiyang muttered. It can't be destroyed. Once the account book is destroyed, then it can't be matched. It must be hidden somewhere. Guyong said telepathically. Hearing this, Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed slightly, and he glanced at Feng Wenhai's body. Such an important thing would definitely be kept by the people he trusted the most. The people Feng Yuan trusted the most now were undoubtedly Feng Wenhai and Feng Zihan, because there were only these two people left in the Feng family now. A moment later, Shangguan Fenglan retracted her divine sense, looked at the first elder, and shook her head. No. The first elder said, search the interspatial ring again. Yes. Shangguan Fenglan nodded and looked at Feng Yuan. Feng Yuan did not hesitate at all, directly took off the interspatial ring and threw it to Shangguan Fenglan. Looking at the calm Feng Yuan, Qin Feiyang and the others were basically sure that the account book was not with Feng Yuan now. Qin Feiyang once again offered Wenhai's corpse. There was also an interspatial ring on Feng Wenhai's left index finger. He looked at the interspatial ring with flickering eyes. Several dozen breaths later, Shangguan Fenglan looked at the first elder again and shook her head. No. Zhang Haoyin, how is it? The truth is the truth. What else do you have to say now? Feng Yuan sneered. Qin Feiyang remained silent. Great elder, This is purely because they colluded to frame me. Please punish them severely and give me justice. Feng Yuan looked at the first elder and called out. The great elder furrowed his brows imperceptibly. He looked at Qin Feiyang and the others and said in a deep voice, framing a hall master is not a small crime. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed as he shot towards Feng Wanhai's corpse. What do you want to do? Feng Yuan was shocked. He hurriedly stood in front of Feng Wanhai's corpse and shouted at Qin Feiyang. What are you doing? I just want to see Feng Wanhai's interspatial ring. Why are you so nervous? Qin Feiyang said. Why am I nervous? The dead is more important. I won't allow you to desecrate his corpse. Feng Yuan shouted. Is that so? Qin Feiyang smiled mockingly. He was already sure that the account book was with Feng Wanhai. Firstly, Feng Yuan's reaction was too abnormal. Secondly, Feng Zihan was too young and was still in Jiutian Palace. Feng Yuan would definitely not trust her. But Feng Wanhai was different. He was cunning, and he was hiding in Longquan Mountain. So it was safer to leave the account book with Feng Wanhai. Feng Yuan said angrily, What do you think? I think the account book is with Feng Wanhai. Qin Feiyang raised the corner of his mouth and looked at the first elder. He bowed and said, First elder, please search Feng Wanhai. With Feng Yuan blocking him, he definitely couldn't get close, so he could only ask the first elder to do it. The first elder nodded and looked at Shangguan Fenglan. Go search. First elder. The dead are more important. Feng Yuan shouted. Shangguan Fenglan stepped forward and said, Feng Yuan, please get out of the way. No, you can't treat Wanhai like this. He's already dead. Can you respect him? Feng Yuan said angrily. Shangguan Fenglan frowned. Feng Yuan, it's not a matter of respect now. It's about your innocence. If you stop me like this, then I have reason to suspect that what Zhang Haoyan said is true. The first elder said. Feng Yuan's face was gloomy. Qin Feiyang's eyes flickered, and suddenly a sense of uneasiness emerged in his heart. He hurriedly sent a voice transmission. Hall Master, be careful of him destroying the corpse. Shangguan Fenglan heard this, and her heart trembled. She shouted, Feng Yuan, you don't even listen to the first elder's order? Get out of the way immediately. Feng Yuan's eyes trembled. Immediately after, a hint of fierceness flashed in his eyes, and he roared, Even if I destroy him with my own hands, I won't let you touch his corpse. Boom. As he roared, he threw a punch at Feng Wanhai's corpse. This brat guessed correctly. He really wants to destroy the corpse to destroy the evidence. Shangguan Fenglan muttered. Swish. She reached out like lightning, grabbed Feng Yuan's wrist, and then kicked at Feng Wanhai's corpse. Feng Wanhai's corpse immediately flew to the feet of Qin Feiyang and the others. Shangguan Fenglan shouted without turning her head, Search him immediately. Qin Feiyang nodded, and his divine sense emerged and poured into Feng Wanhai's body. Shangguan Fenglan, you've gone too far. Feng Yuan roared and slapped at Shangguan Fenglan. Feng Yuan, how dare you be presumptuous? The great elder suddenly shouted coldly, and a vast and mighty pressure rolled out. Feng Yuan was confined to the spot, unable to move at all. This is the first elder's strength? Even Feng Yuan can't move under his pressure. Qin Feiyang looked at the great elder who was sitting at the top in shock. The first elder shouted, What are you looking at? Search quickly. Yes, yes, yes. Qin Feiyang nodded repeatedly, and his divine sense quickly poured into Feng Wanhai's qi. Immediately, his eyes lit up. Immediately after, a black iron box appeared from Feng Wanhai's qi. Seeing Qin Feiyang find the black iron box, Feng Yuan immediately closed his eyes in despair. Qin Feiyang stood up and opened the iron box, and saw a yellowing account book lying quietly inside. That's it. Guiyong went forward to take a look and immediately exclaimed. Qin Feiyang looked at Feng Yuan and sneered, then handed the account book to Shangguan Fenglan. Shangguan Fenglan then handed the account book to the first elder. The great elder took the account book and flipped it open to read it carefully. 2 pinnacle divine artifacts, 3 pinnacle divine arts, 50 million soul stones, 70 million soul stones, 200 million soul stones, 3 billion divine crystals. These were the contents of the account book, which was the things that Feng Yuan had embezzled. It was recorded very clearly, even the dates were recorded. The account book was as thick as a finger, and on it, there was actually a full half of the account book. It was hard to imagine how much Feng Yuan had embezzled over the years. Bastard! The first elder only read a dozen pages before he couldn't continue reading. He angrily slammed the account book on the table and shouted at the major giants. All of you also take a good look for this old man. This is the good deed that our 9 Heavens Palace Resource Hall Master has done all these years. Everyone looked at each other. How much had he embezzled to make the first elder so angry? Shangguan Fenglan was the first to grab the account book, looked at it carefully for a while, and then slammed the account book on the table with a face full of anger. Immediately after, the major giants also looked at the account book one after another. Without exception, they were all filled with anger in the end. The first elder released his pressure and looked at Feng Yuan. You are really amazing. You are really our role model. Plop. Feng Yuan's body trembled and knelt on the ground powerlessly. You are deceiving the trust of this old man and the deputy pavilion master in you. Such a person's death is not to be regretted. The first elder shouted. First elder, I was wrong. I was wrong. Please have mercy. I will definitely repent. Give me another chance. Everyone, please help me beg for mercy. In the past, I was really muddle-headed. I will definitely repent and turn over a new leaf. Feng Yuan's body and mind were trembling. It was obvious that the first elder had the intention to kill him, and he begged again and again. However, none of the major giants present paid attention to him, because they also knew that Feng Yuan's luck was over. If they continued to help Feng Yuan, it would be asking for trouble. At that time, the first elder might even punish them together. First elder, I beg you. I really know that I was wrong. Just give me another chance on account of the hard work I've put in all these years, even if I haven't made any contributions. Feng Yuan was already flustered. Chance? Forget it. My 9 Heavens Palace can't afford to raise a talent like you. Hand over your identity token and scram. From now on, whether it is you or your descendants, you are not allowed to enter the 9 Heavens Palace. Protect Feng Zihan. The first elder said expressionlessly. What? Even Zihan has to leave the 9 Heavens Palace? Feng Yuan's face turned pale. First elder, this matter has nothing to do with Zihan. It is all my fault. Please let Zihan go, okay? But for this result, Qin Feiyang was deeply surprised. He actually didn't kill Feng Yuan, but only expelled him from the 9 Heavens Palace? What was this first elder thinking? Frenzy secretly said, this result, I have already expected it. Expected? Qin Feiyang frowned. And, although Feng Yuan has indeed embezzled a lot, but as he said, even if there is no merit, there is still hard work. The old man will not kill him, Frenzy said. Qin Feiyang transmitted. In that case, we still have to use our ultimate move. Yes. Frenzy nodded. I don't object to you using your ultimate move, but can you keep the Golden Crow Temple a secret? Mu Tianyang secretly said. It wasn't easy to obtain a spatial divine item with a time array. He didn't want to lose it just like that. Frenzy glanced at Mu Tianyang and didn't say anything. The first elder looked at Feng Yuan gloomily. This old man doesn't want to hear any more nonsense. Immediately take Feng Zihan and scram out of the 9 Heavens Palace. Feng Yuan collapsed on the ground like a dead dog, his face filled with despair. But at this time, Qin Feiyang spoke. First elder, wait. This disciple has something to say. The first elder looked at Qin Feiyang. This old man knows what you want to say. But this old man has made up his mind. Do you really know what this disciple wants to say? If it is for such a small matter, would senior brother Frenzy be so angry? If it is for such a small matter, would this disciple invite the vice pavilion master to our 9 Heavens Palace? Qin Feiyang said. Hearing this, the vice pavilion master's old eyes flashed. And the first elder's expression froze. Shangguan Fenglan and the others also looked at Qin Feiyang in surprise. Could there be something more serious? Chapter 2159. Feng Yuan also stared at Qin Feiyang and roared, Zhang Haoyan, I've already become like this. What else do you want to do? Qin Feiyang looked at Feng Yuan and said, let's not beat around the bush. I want your life. Don't go too far. Feng Yuan was furious. Why didn't I see you restrain yourself when you bullied us? I'm also telling you, you absolutely won't leave this meeting hall alive today, Qin Feiyang said. Looking at Qin Feiyang's firm attitude, Feng Yuan couldn't help but panic again. Could it be that this boy really had something more terrible than his corruption and perversion of the law in his hands? The first elder and Shangguan Fenglan looked at each other, then looked at Qin Feiyang and said, then say it. They were actually looking forward to it. Qin Feiyang looked at the first elder and said, do you still remember how your son died? The first elder's hands suddenly clenched tightly together, and his gloomy eyes also turned to the deputy pavilion master. However, the deputy pavilion master was very calm, but at the same time, Feng Yuan's eyes trembled slightly, and his heart was full of doubts. Why did he suddenly mention the first elder's son? Qin Feiyang glanced at Feng Yuan, then looked at the first elder and said, don't be angry. In fact, you have been misunderstanding the deputy pavilion master all this time. The first elder shouted, this is what Feng Yuan said himself. Is it a misunderstanding? Qin Feiyang said, it's precisely because Feng Yuan said it that it's a big misunderstanding. What do you mean? The first elder frowned. Qin Feiyang said, because your son was not killed by the deputy pavilion master, but by Feng Yuan. What? Feng Yuan killed him? Shangguan Fenglan and the other giants were all dumbfounded. The first elder was also dumbfounded. How could it be Feng Yuan? Feng Yuan's body also shook violently. How did this boy know? No, this matter absolutely could not be allowed to continue to develop. At this point, Feng Yuan glared at Qin Feiyang and roared, you're slandering me. Do you know my relationship with the great elder's son? No matter how much of a bastard I am, I can't be so ungrateful as to kill him. Great elder, please don't listen to his nonsense. He's obviously in cahoots with the vice pavilion master to take my life, Feng Yuanqi said angrily. Hearing Feng Yuan's words, first elder's expression also became hesitant. Qin Feiyang wasn't in a hurry. He looked at Feng Yuan and smiled. Of course I know about your relationship. You used to be just a little follower by his side. Yes, I'm your follower. But in my heart, he has always been my big brother, and he's very good to me. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be where I am today. Such a benefactor, even if I lose my conscience and my humanity, I will not harm him. Feng Yuan roared. Benefactor? Feng Yuan, oh Feng Yuan. So you also know that he's very good to you. You also know that without him, you wouldn't be where you are today. But how did you repay him? Back then, after snatching the 9th level soul vein, although he was seriously injured by the vice pavilion master, it wasn't fatal. It's you who killed him on the way back when he wasn't paying attention. It's also you who killed everyone accompanying him. That's not enough. When you returned to the 9th Heaven Palace, you still pushed all the blame to the vice pavilion master, causing him to be wronged for so many years. You even crippled one of his legs. This is all your masterpiece. Tell me, do you really have a conscience? Qin Feiyang shouted. Every word made Feng Yuan speechless. At the same time, hearing Qin Feiyang's words, the vice pavilion master's eyes couldn't help but fill with tears. For so many years, every day felt like a year to him. Now, the truth was finally coming out. He was happy. Nonsense, nonsense. Feng Yuan came back to his senses and immediately roared, First Elder, this isn't true. Please investigate clearly. Shut up. The great elder shouted coldly. Feng Yuan's body trembled. If you are really wronged, this old man will clear your name. The great elder said gloomily, looked at Qin Feiyang and said, do you have evidence? Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded and shouted, Gu Yong. Gu Yong immediately stood up, looked at the great elder and said, I can testify to this. It's absolutely true. Gu Yong, what benefits did you receive from Zhang Haoyan to frame me like this? Feng Yuan said angrily. Frame you? Have you forgotten? Once when we were drinking in private, you drank too much and told me yourself. Gu Yong sneered. Ridiculous, ridiculous. If this is true, how could I tell you? Great Elder, they colluded long ago. You must not listen to them. This is a great injustice. Feng Yuan shouted. I have long expected that Gu Yong's testimony alone will not be able to make you confess. Qin Feiyang sneered. The Great Elder said in a deep voice, So, you still have evidence in your hands? Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded. I'll kill you. Feng Yuan was flustered and exasperated. In an instant, he rushed in front of Qin Feiyang and threw a punch at Qin Feiyang's head. Humph! But at the same time, Shangguan Fenglan snorted coldly and also instantly stood in front of Qin Feiyang and slapped him fiercely. Duh! Feng Yuan was actually pushed back. It could be seen that Shangguan Fenglan's strength was stronger than Feng Yuan's. What? A cornered dog will jump over the wall and want to kill me to silence me? Qin Feiyang sneered and said, Now, I will take out the evidence and convince you. After saying that, Qin Feiyang took out the image crystal. A video slowly unfolded. It was the video of Feng Yuanhai's confession. It's really Feng Yuan? Damn it. It turns out that he is the real murderer of the Great Elder's son. This is really inhumane. Back then, the Great Elder's son took care of him so much, but he actually did such a thing. As soon as the video ended, the giants immediately roared angrily. Feng Yuan, the Great Elder roared. His gloomy eyes were like that of a demon. Great Elder, it's not like that. Feng Yuan waved his hand repeatedly, extremely flustered. It's not like that? Could it be that your own son would join them in framing you? The Great Elder laughed angrily. Wenhai definitely won't frame me, but he must have been forced to say these words. Feng Yuan said, Even now, you still want to quibble. You are really stubborn. Qin Feiyang shook his head. Feng Yuan roared, I didn't do it. Wenhai must have been forced by you. What a joke. Feng Wenhai was killed by me. Do you think I would force him? Madman couldn't hold it in anymore and shouted. Feng Yuan said, You and Zhang Haoyan were originally in cahoots. What a joke. You actually dare to bite back. All right, I will let you die with understanding. Madman laughed angrily and swept his gaze across the giants. Haven't you always been curious why the old man took care of me so much? Now I will tell you. The old man's son is my foster father. What? Foster father? Everyone was dumbfounded. Didn't this mean that the Great Elder was Madman's grandfather? Foster father. Feng Yuan also opened his eyes wide in anger. This madman was actually the foster son of the Great Elder's son. Then what he said had enough credibility. What should we do? Feng Yuan panicked, completely panicked. Shangguan Fenglan also found it hard to accept. She looked at the Great Elder and asked, Great Elder, is this true? And the Great Elder nodded. Everyone fell silent. Since the Great Elder admitted it, then it must be true. That madman naturally couldn't be with Zhang Haoyan to frame Feng Yuan. Then everything would be real. You are all old friends of Wu Yuan. You know his personality. He is eccentric, arrogant, and never looks down on anyone. But one day, he suddenly ran back and told me that he had taken a liking to a young man and wanted to take him as his foster son. I was very surprised at that time. What kind of young man could make him appreciate him so much? But at that time, Wu Yuan just smiled mysteriously and didn't say anything. And he didn't bring Madman into the Nine Heaven Palace. He said he wanted to teach him privately. Although I wanted to know, I didn't force him. Then one day, a 9th-level soul vein appeared in the Sky Dragon Sea. Wu Yuan brought people to the Sky Dragon Sea to snatch the soul vein. You all know the result. On the 3rd day after Wu Yuan died, Madman appeared with the token that Wu Yuan gave him. From then on, I brought him back to the Nine Heaven Palace and taught him carefully. In the end, it was proven that Wu Yuan didn't make a mistake. He is a promising talent. But Wu Yuan and I never mentioned Madman's identity to anyone, so you all don't know. Even Feng Yuan didn't know of Madman's existence, Great Elder said. So that's how it is. Everyone was enlightened. Actually, Madman didn't have such a personality in the past. It was because of Wu Yuan's death that he slowly became like this. So all these years, no matter how much trouble he caused, This old man turned a blind eye to it, and in my heart, he isn't Wu Yuan's foster son. He is Wu Yuan's biological son. He is also my biological grandson. Great Elder looked at Madman with doting eyes and smiled. Sigh. Everyone sighed. First, it was because of Madman. Generally speaking, once a person's personality was formed, it was hard to change unless they suffered a huge blow. And for Madman to become like this, it wasn't hard to imagine how big of a blow his foster father's death was to him. Second, it was because of Great Elder's son. Thinking back, how good was he to Feng Yuan? But what did he get in return? It was repaying kindness with enmity. It wasn't worth it. Fated? Senior brother, Fated is your foster father? Qin Feiyang secretly said. And my foster father's full name is Emo Wuyuan, Madman transmitted. Emo Fated? Fated, this name is a little strange. Fated, no share. Could it be that Great Elder will say that his character is aloof and arrogant? Qin Feiyang mumbled. What? Madman looked at Qin Feiyang in shock. Did you hear wrongly? It's not Fated, it's Wu Yuan, the source of origin. So that's how it is. Qin Feiyang smiled awkwardly. He really heard wrongly. Madman rolled his eyes and looked at Feng Yuan. Do you still want to continue quibbling? Chapter 2160. Feng Yuan lay paralyzed on the ground, his eyes unfocused. Now, how could he dare to quibble? Other than despair and fear in his heart, there was nothing else. No, there was hatred for Feng Wenhai. That's right. He hated Feng Wenhai right now. Since he was going to die anyway, why drag him down? What a white-eyed wolf. Madman took a deep breath and retracted his gaze. He looked at the Great Elder and said, Old man, I'm a little tired. I'll go back and rest first. You can do as you see fit. Finished. Madman turned around and left alone. The Great Elder glanced at Madman, then lowered his head to look at Feng Yuan. A cold light surged in his eyes as he said, corruption, favoritism, betrayal, and killing fellow disciples. Even if you die, it will be difficult for you to forgive your sins. However, Feng Yuan acted as if he didn't hear it. He didn't seem angry at all. But suddenly, he seemed to have thought of something, and the fire of hope ignited in his eyes. He secretly shouted to Mu Tianyang, immediately capture Zhang Haoyin and Hua Yi for me. Why? Mu Tianyang was taken aback and asked curiously, Hua Yi is the disciple of the Vice Palace Master, and Zhang Haoyin is also highly regarded by Shangguan Fenglan and the Great Elder. As long as I capture the two of them, I can use them to threaten the Great Elder and escape. Feng Yuan secretly said, Good idea, but why should I listen to you? Mu Tianyang snickered. What? You dare to disobey my orders? Believe it or not, I will erase your divine soul right now. Feng Yuan shouted. Hee, even now, why are you still so naive? Am I, Mu Tianyang, the kind of person who would place my life in the hands of others? Mu Tianyang sneered and said, Qin Feiyang, quickly remove Feng Yuan's control over me. Qin Feiyang heard this and immediately formed a seal. An enslavement seal rapidly appeared and sank into Mu Tianyang's head like lightning. Immediately, Feng Yuan spat out a mouthful of blood. How is this possible? Feng Yuan looked at Qin Feiyang and Yi Zichen in disbelief. They had actually broken his control over Mu Tianyang? The Great Elder and the others looked at Qin Feiyang and Yi Shiwen in confusion. Truth be told, when we entered the resource hall, Mu Tianyang had been lurking beside Feng Yuan for the sake of finding this evidence. For example, back then, we were assassinated outside the northern city gates. It was Feng Yuan who ordered it. Furthermore, an outer court disciple by the name of Ma Guang was also killed by Feng Yuan. We have all the evidence. Of course, with Feng Yuan's personality, he definitely wouldn't trust Mu Tianyang so easily. Therefore, he used a kind of control secret technique to control him. He thought that this was foolproof, but he didn't know that I can remove his control over Mu Tianyang. Qin Feiyang smiled. Remove the control? How is this possible? Shouldn't this kind of control secret technique be removed by the person himself? When the giants heard this, They were all in disbelief. Feng Yuan was dumbstruck. It turned out that this was a trap from the beginning. To think that he thought that Mu Tianyang was already firmly in his hands. It was indeed ridiculous. The great elder also looked at Qin Feiyang in shock. But soon after, his eyes flashed with strong killing intent. He turned to look at Feng Yuan and said, "Pay the price for your mistakes. Don't. Great elder, don't kill me. Please, I'm willing to forgive you." Feng Yuan's body trembled as he hurriedly roared, "What do you have to forgive me?" The great elder roared as a wisp of divine power emerged, emitting a world-destroying aura. Can I be your slave for the rest of my life?" Feng Yuan shouted. "You're not qualified." The great elder laughed coldly. His divine power cut through the sky and swept towards Feng Yuan's forehead. Although it was only a wisp of divine power, Feng Yuan couldn't help but feel a chill all over his body. "Zhang Haoyin, this is all your fault? I'll perish together with you." All of a sudden, he raised his head and stared at Qin Feiyang as he roared. Immediately after, a destructive aura roared out from his body. Not good. It's self-destruction. Qin Feiyang, Hua Yi, Mu Tianyang, and Gu Yang's faces suddenly changed. Even Shangguan Fenglan and the group of giants turned pale with fright. With Feng Yuan's cultivation, if he were to self-destruct, no one here, except for the great elder and the deputy pavilion master, would be able to survive. Even the entire Nine Heaven Palace would be razed to the ground. In other words, Feng Yuan's successful self-destruction was a disaster for the Nine Heaven Palace. "All of you, go to hell with this old man." Feng Yuan laughed sinisterly. "You don't have the ability," the great elder said coldly. With a wave of his hand, the wisp of divine power that was rushing towards Feng Yuan's forehead suddenly changed direction, and with a swoosh, it disappeared into Feng Yuan's qi-si. Accompanied by a scream, Feng Yuan's qi-si shattered on the spot, and the self-destruction was forcibly stopped. The shattering of his qi-si also made him instantly fall to the bottom of the valley, and all his hopes were dashed. This time, he didn't even have the chance to self-destruct. As for the divine soul, although it could also be used as a means of attack, with the great elder's strength, he could probably destroy it with a wave of his hand. Now, he could only wait for death. "I originally wanted to give you a quick death and directly kill you, but your stubbornness has completely infuriated this old man. Now, it's difficult for you to die even if you want to." The great elder smiled coldly and took out a small transparent jade bottle from his Qian Kuren ring, which contained a blood-red liquid. That is, the deputy pavilion master's pupils contracted. Qin Feiyang noticed the deputy pavilion master's abnormality and asked, "Old senior, what is that?" "That is the bone-corroding spirit thread," the deputy pavilion master secretly said. "What?" Qin Feiyang was shocked. This was a highly toxic poison that could cripple the deputy pavilion master. The great elder walked step by step in front of Feng Yuan. "No, I beg you, no." Feng Yuan looked at the jade bottle, his face full of horror. However, the great elder turned a deaf ear to him. He grabbed Feng Yuan's chin and poured the entire bottle of poison directly into Feng Yuan's mouth. "Ruthless," the deputy pavilion master muttered. "What do you mean?" Qin Feiyang was puzzled. "You don't know how terrifying the bone-corroding spirit thread is. Back then, only 3 drops were enough to cripple one of my legs. You can imagine what will happen if Feng Yuan drinks the whole bottle. Now, I'm afraid even a divine pill can't save him," the deputy pavilion master secretly said. 3 drops were enough to cripple one of your legs?" Qin Feiyang was dumbfounded. "Yes, and after so many years, I still haven't refined it," the deputy pavilion master said. Qin Feiyang's heart was surging with waves of shock. He had never thought that the bone-corroding spirit thread would be so terrifying. At the same time, Feng Yuan was lying on the ground, frantically clutching his throat, trying to spit it out. However, he had underestimated the bone-corroding spirit thread. In less than 3 breaths, the poison began to take effect, and along the blood, it quickly spread to every cell in the body. Immediately, he held his head and kept rolling on the ground, screaming miserably. "Great elder, I beg you. Let me go. Severe pain swept through his whole body. Despair drowned his entire soul. He felt as if there were countless ants running wildly in his body, gnawing at his flesh and blood. He didn't want to die. But in the face of his pleas, the great elder's face was still cold. More than 10 breaths passed. He had already become a bloody man. His endurance had reached its limit. Bang, bang, bang. His head was constantly smashing on the ground. He didn't want to be tortured like this anymore. He wanted to end his life like this. However, although his sea of chi was destroyed, the strength of his physical body did not change at all. As a result, not only did he not end his life, but he also smashed a large piece of the hard ground. Great Elder, please give me a quick death, I beg you. Feng Yuan cried out. He no longer hoped to live. He only hoped to end this pain as soon as possible. This was what it meant to be unable to live or die. He couldn't die even if he wanted to. Mu Tianyang looked at the miserable Feng Yuan and said to Qin Feiyang, in the future, we must stay away from this old man. I think so too. It's too scary. Qin Feiyang secretly said. He was no stranger to poison, because Viper was also a master of poison. But in front of this old man, Viper was not even qualified to carry his shoes. This was a true venomous creature. However, Feng Yuan deserved it. Serves him right. The giants also looked at Feng Yuan coldly, without the slightest sympathy. Because such a person, even if it was cut into pieces, it would not be too much. Gradually, Feng Yuan couldn't even move an inch, because all the bones in his body had been corroded by the bone-corroding spirit silk. If at this moment he released his spirit sense to observe Feng Yuan's body, he would be shocked to find that all the bones in Feng Yuan's body had turned into ashes. In other words, he no longer had bones, only flesh and blood. Even his flesh and blood were being crazily corroded by the bone-corroding spirit silk. I beg you. He did not even have the strength to open his mouth. Like a pile of mud, he lay on the ground, silently begging. However, his pleading didn't cause the first elder to feel any pity for him. His flesh and blood disappeared little by little. Even his skin was rotting, as if it was being eaten by insects. About a few hundred breaths passed. Feng Yuan completely dissipated, leaving only a pool of blood to prove that he had existed. Looking at this scene, Qin Feiyang and Mu Tianyang's fear of the Great Elder also became deeper and deeper. A living person was forcibly corroded just like that. This kind of old poison was not something they could provoke. But at the same time, they also heaved a sigh of relief. Feng Yuan, that old bastard, was finally dead. They would not be afraid of being plotted against in the future, especially Mu Tianyang. Feng Yuan did not say anything about the Golden Crow Temple before he died. To him, this was something to be happy about. Wait a minute. The Deputy Pavilion Master seemed to know that the Golden Crow Temple was with him? Please don't say it. Otherwise, the Great Elder would definitely ask him to hand it over. In the past, he was full of confidence that even if the Great Elder knew, he would be able to protect the Golden Crow Temple. But now, after seeing the Great Elder's means, he realized how naive and childish his confidence and thoughts were. Chapter 2161. As for the Vice Pavilion Master, he had not said a word from the beginning to the end. He had been quietly watching from the side. Suddenly, he let out a long breath and looked up at the Great Elder. He said hoarsely, now that the truth is out, shouldn't you give this old man an explanation? Explanation? What explanation do you want? If you didn't injure Wu Yuan, would Feng Yuan have the chance to assassinate him? The Great Elder said angrily. Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows imperceptibly. The Great Elder was being somewhat unreasonable. When two armies fought, each had their own ability. Not to mention that the Vice Pavilion Master did not kill Imo Wu Yuan. Even if he did, the Great Elder had nothing to say. After all, the Vice Pavilion Master was not from Nine Heaven Palace and had no obligation to let his opponent go. It could be said that the Vice Pavilion Master had already given the Great Elder a lot of face. Otherwise, he would not have let Imo Wu Yuan go. And now, the truth that had been buried for so many years was finally revealed. The Vice Pavilion Master had been wronged for so many years and even had a crippled leg. Shouldn't he compensate him? Even if he did not compensate him, he should at least apologize. But now, not only did the great elder not apologize, but he also continued to push the blame to the vice pavilion master. This was somewhat shameful. Originally, because of frenzy, he had a good impression of the great elder. But now, this good impression had disappeared. When the vice pavilion master heard the great elder's words, he was so angry that his body trembled. Suddenly, he supported himself with his walking stick and stood up, emitting a murderous aura. Seeing that the situation was not good, all the leaders became vigilant. The great elder's eyes flashed with a cold light. In the past, it was because I did not know the truth that I endured. And now, the truth is out, but you are still like this. It seems that you really think that this old man is easy to bully. Fine. Then this old man will accompany you to the end, the vice pavilion master said as he scanned everyone present. His eyes flashed with killing intent. 9 Heaven Palace, prepare to suffer the wrath of my treasure pavilion. Everyone's heart trembled. Was this the rhythm of completely falling out? The great elder clenched his fists. However, the vice pavilion master did not bother with them anymore. He turned to Qin Feiyang and the other two and said with a smile, "Little brothers, thank you for clearing this old man's name. This old man will never forget this great kindness." "Senior, you're too polite. Old senior, let's talk things out. There's no need to fight to the death." "Yeah, we all know that you've suffered a lot over the years, but great elder, it's not good for you to see your child die before your own. Can we just sit down and have a good talk?" Qin Feiyang and the other two were somewhat anxious. This old man doesn't want to make a big deal out of this. But you've all seen the first elder's attitude. If it were you, would you be able to tolerate such an attitude? This old man believes that no one can tolerate this. This matter has nothing to do with the three of you, so please don't interfere. If you need anything in the future, feel free to look for this old man at the treasure pavilion. Once again, I would like to express my gratitude to the three of you. After the vice pavilion master finished speaking, he turned and walked out of the hall, not looking back. Qin Feiyang was burning with anxiety. He looked at the first elder and said, "First elder, enough? You're just a disciple. What qualifications do you have to interrupt our matters?" The first elder shouted angrily. Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows and a burst of anger rose in his heart. He said expressionlessly, "Fine, I'll take my leave. You can do whatever you want. Goodbye." After Qin Feiyang finished speaking, he turned and left angrily. This old bastard was not only unreasonable, he was simply impervious to reason. "Huh." Mu Tianyang shook his head and sighed. He cupped his hands and said, "This disciple will also take his leave." After he finished speaking, he gave Guyong a look and hurriedly left. Guyong naturally didn't dare to stay any longer. Hui didn't leave. He looked at the first elder and said, "First elder, don't blame Zhang Haoyan and the others. This matter is indeed your fault." The first elder angrily said, "But what this old man said is also the truth. Yes, it's because the vice pavilion lord seriously injured your son that Feng Yuan found an opportunity. But have you thought about it? The vice pavilion lord was already merciful back then. Moreover, he didn't know that Feng Yuan would plot against your son. Everyone has a temper," Wang Chong said. "The vice pavilion lord has been wronged for so many years and even lost one of his legs because of you. He just wants you to give him an explanation. Is this too much?" "Fine. If you won't listen, then I won't talk nonsense. You're on your own. But there is one thing you must remember. Don't bring disaster to our 9 Heavens Palace because of your own selfishness. If that really happens, you won't be able to atone for your sins even if you die." After Hua Yi finished speaking, he turned and walked out of the hall, chasing after Qin Feiyang and the others. "Rebel, rebel, all of them are rebelling." Great Elder was fuming with rage, furious to the extreme. Shangguan Fenglan and the others looked at each other. Although they also felt that the first elder's actions were somewhat lacking in consideration, no one dared to say anything. In the conference hall, other than the first elder's anger, it fell into a dead silence. Outside, Huai called out to Qin Feiyang, "Brother Jiang, wait for me." Qin Feiyang stopped. Mu Tianyang and Gu Yong also stopped and turned to look at Hua Yi. When Hua Yi caught up, Mu Tianyang said, "You're the Vice Pavilion Lord's disciple. Shouldn't you stay in the conference hall and persuade the first elder?" "Forget it. That old man is still angry. The more I persuade him, the more he'll get angry. Let's wait for him to calm down first." Hua Yi waved his hand. Qin Feiyang sighed. "I didn't expect our Nine Heavens Palace's first elder to be like this." Hua Yi asked, "Are you disappointed?" "A little." Qin Feiyang did not deny it. But it didn't matter. He wouldn't stay in Nine Heavens Palace forever. And Nine Heavens Palace couldn't give him a sense of belonging. "In fact, I'm also very angry. But he's still the first elder. What can I do?" Hui shook his head and sighed. Qin Feiyang smiled, looked at Gu Yong beside him and said, "You can go now?" "All right." Gu Yong couldn't wait to leave Nine Heavens Palace. Right now, Nine Heavens Palace was a place of trouble for him. The further away he was, the better. "Wait." Suddenly, Qin Feiyang called out to Gu Yong again. "What's wrong?" Gu Yong stopped and looked back at Qin Feiyang suspiciously. Qin Feiyang lowered his head and pondered for a moment, then smiled. "Your performance these few times has been very good, and now that Feng Yuan is dead, I don't need your help anymore. I'll remove my control over you." "Really?" Gu Yong was stunned. Qin Feiyang nodded and immediately removed the slave seal. "Thank you." Gu Yong was overjoyed. "Don't be happy too early. Although I've removed my control over you, if I find out that you're doing something outrageous again, I won't let you go," Qin Feiyang said. "Don't worry. After experiencing this period of time, I've thought it through. There's nothing better than being alive. Right now, I just want to peacefully accompany my family." Gu Yong laughed. "It's good that you have this awareness." Qin Feiyang smiled with relief and said, "When you have time, have a few more children. After all, you have to pass down your legacy." Gu Yong scratched his head and laughed dryly. "Actually, I also have this plan." Qin Feiyang waved his hand and said, "All right then, go back and reunite with your family." "All right. Take care of yourselves." Gu Yong cupped his hands and turned into a stream of light, breaking through the sky like lightning. Hui laughed. In the past, he followed Feng Yuan and did all kinds of evil. I didn't expect that now he would actually become a good person. People, after experiencing some things, will definitely change more or less. It's just that some people become good and some people become bad. Qin Feiyang said. "Then what's next? Are we still going to Sky Dragon Sea?" Hui asked. "Feng Yuan has been eliminated. There's no need to go anymore." Qin Feiyang laughed. "That's true." Hui nodded and said, "Then, we will continue to work in the resource hall?" "Definitely. The treatment in the resource hall is so good. How can we lose this job?" Mu Tianyang laughed. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed and looked at the two of them. "You guys go back first. I still have something to deal with." "What is it?" The two of them were curious. "It's a secret." Qin Feiyang smiled. The two of them rolled their eyes. "All right, we will go first. Brother Mu, let's go." After Hua Yi finished speaking, he turned and flew in the direction of the resource hall. Mu Tianyang looked at Hua Yi's back and looked at Qin Feiyang, whispering, "You really don't want to go to Sky Dragon Sea?" "Of course. I said that just now because I don't want Hua Yi to follow me." Qin Feiyang transmitted his voice. Mu Tianyang said, "Then what about Frenzy?" Qin Feiyang pondered and secretly said, "Frenzy doesn't matter. Anyway, he knows my true identity." "All right. When you set off, let me know in advance," Mu Tianyang said. "Okay." Qin Feiyang nodded. After Mu Tianyang left, Qin Feiyang turned around and looked at the conference hall. A glint flashed across his eyes as he flew towards the Lotus Lake. Chapter 2162. Lotus Lake. Blue waves rippled and lotus flowers bloomed. Quiet and peaceful. Qin Feiyang landed on the balcony. He knew that Shangguan Fenglan had not returned, so he stood by the balcony, admiring the scenery while pondering. His original plan was to go to the Sky Dragon Sea first, and then get rid of Feng Yuan. But why did he change his plan at the last minute? In fact, it was for this moment. Because as long as he got rid of Feng Yuan, he would be able to enter the Vice Palace Master's study. This was the condition that he had agreed on with Shangguan Fenglan. At this moment, he had been waiting for a long time. Therefore, when Lunatic said that he wanted to return to Nine Heavens Palace, he nodded in agreement. Time passed quietly. About an hour passed. Finally, a woman in a light purple dress broke through the air. It was Shangguan Fenglan. And, looking at Qin Feiyang standing on the balcony, Shangguan Fenglan was slightly stunned. Then, she landed beside Qin Feiyang and asked suspiciously, "Are you waiting for me?" Qin Feiyang retracted his gaze and said speechlessly, "If I wasn't waiting for you, why would I be standing here? Is it because of the Vice Pavilion Master? It's useless for you to look for me about this. The two Pavilion Masters are not here, so the Great Elder is the highest authority in our Nine Heavens Palace." Shangguan Fenglan sighed. "No, the grudge between the Vice Pavilion Master and the Great Elder has nothing to do with me. I don't care." Without waiting for Shangguan Fenglan to finish, Qin Feiyang shook his head and said. Shangguan Fenglan was stunned and asked suspiciously, "If it's not about the Vice Pavilion Master, then why are you looking for me?" Qin Feiyang said, "You can't have forgotten our agreement, right?" "Agreement?" Shangguan Fenglan was stunned. Then she patted her head and said with a bitter smile, "If you didn't mention it, I would have forgotten about it. But you were too impatient. Feng Yuan just died, and you came looking for me." Joking. 4 pinnacle-level divine arts, 350 million soul stones. Who isn't anxious? Qin Feiyang said. All right, all right, all right. Shangguan Fenglan nodded. She took out a cosmos sack and threw it to Qin Feiyang. "You've already prepared it?" Qin Feiyang grabbed the Qinkuan bag and asked in surprise. "Yes. I've been prepared since we made the agreement. But at the beginning, I didn't have much hope for you. But the result surprised me. Not only did you effortlessly dismantle Feng Yuan's forces, you even dug out the true cause of Mo Wu Yuan's death." Shangguan Fenglan's face was full of admiration. With ease? Qin Feiyang shook his head helplessly. It looked like he was handling it with ease, but in fact, every step he took was filled with trepidation. Shangguan Fenglan continued, "However, regarding the Vice Pavilion Master, don't blame me for saying this. You shouldn't have let the Vice Pavilion Master come to our Nine Heavens Palace." "Why?" Qin Feiyang frowned. "You must know what the Great Elder did to the Vice Pavilion Master. You want the Vice Pavilion Master to enter the Nine Heavens Palace? Aren't you trying to embarrass the Great Elder?" Shangguan Fenglan said. "Then do you want to hide it from the Vice Pavilion Master? You have to know that the real victim of this matter is not the Great Elder, but the Vice Pavilion Master. He has the right to know the truth." Qin Feiyang said. "You pursue fairness and justice. That's right. But there are some things that may not be a good thing if you say it out loud. In the end, you're still too young." Shangguan Fenglan sighed. "I beg to differ. I don't have any selfish motives. I just feel that it's unfair for the Vice Pavilion Master." Qin Feiyang said. Okay. Everyone has their own thoughts. Let's not argue." Shangguan Fenglan waved her hand and said, "When I targeted Yin Hui and the others last time, I had a question in my heart, but I never had the chance to ask you." "What is it?" Qin Feiyang was suspicious. Shangguan Fenglan said, "Hasn't Mu Qing always been by Mu Tianyang's side? How did she get the evidence?" "It's very simple. When Child Feng entered the prison, I asked Mu Qing to hide in the Space Divine Object and leave the prison with Child Feng. As for Elder Yun, although he knew about us, he didn't know that Mu Qing was also in the prison. Because Mu Qing had been cultivating in Mu Tianyang's Space Divine Object, so Mu Qing's departure didn't arouse any suspicion. After leaving the prison, Mu Qing had been with Child Feng all the time. Therefore, the conversation between Yin Hui and the others that night was all recorded by Mu Qing." Qin Feiyang said. "So that's how it is." Shangguan Fenglan suddenly understood. Qin Feiyang lowered his head and checked the cosmos sack. There were indeed a lot of soul stones in it and 4 jade boxes, which should contain the divine arts. He didn't count them and directly put them away. After all, Shangguan Fenglan was a big shot with a reputation. She definitely wouldn't do such a thing as deceiving people. The most important thing was, he wasn't in the mood to count them now, because there was only one thought in his mind now, which was to enter the Vice Palace Master's study. Is there anything else? If there's nothing else, go back. During this period of time, don't do anything out of line, lest you arouse the dissatisfaction of the first elder. Shangguan Fenglan said. Go back? Qin Feiyang was stunned and hurriedly said, Wait, haven't you forgotten one thing? What is it? Shangguan Fenglan was suspicious. The Vice Palace Master's study. Back then, you said that after the matter was done, you would allow me to enter the Vice Palace Master's study. Qin Feiyang said. Shangguan Fenglan said, Did I say that? Are you trying to act shamelessly? Qin Feiyang frowned. Did I really say that? Why don't I have any impression of it? Shangguan Fenglan said. Qin Feiyang's face darkened. He didn't believe that this woman's memory would be so bad. He said in a deep voice, You can't be like this, not to mention that you're the hall master of our 9 Heavens Palace's law enforcement hall. If others know that you went back on your word, how would they talk about you behind your back? Ahem. Shangguan Fenglan coughed dryly and said, Well, I remember now. I asked the first elder about this matter before, but the first elder didn't allow it. Didn't allow it? Qin Feiyang frowned. Yes. The first elder said that it's the Vice Palace Master's private study, and no one can step in without the Vice Palace Master's permission. Shangguan Fenglan said regretfully. Qin Feiyang said angrily, Then why didn't you tell me earlier? This? Shangguan Fenglan looked a little embarrassed. I know, because you still need my help to get rid of Feng Yuan, and now that Feng Yuan is dead, I'm no longer of any value. So you're not afraid to show your cards? Qin Feiyang sneered. I don't deny it, Shangguan Fenglan said. Okay, I'll remember this. Sooner or later, we'll meet again in the treasure pavilion. Qin Feiyang smiled coldly, and then rose into the air, disappearing from Shangguan Fenglan's sight. Meet again in the treasure pavilion? Shangguan Fenglan was stunned. What did that mean? Could it be? Wait. Suddenly, Shangguan Fenglan shouted. Qin Feiyang stopped and said without turning his head, May I ask if there's anything else, Lord Palace Master? Shangguan Fenglan said in a deep voice. What do you mean by that? You know very well. This time, I helped the Vice Palace Master of the Treasure Pavilion, and he is grateful to me. And he also knows that I can refine pills like the 4 symbols Infinite Divine Pill. Do you think the Treasure Pavilion will refuse my entry? Qin Feiyang said. You want to betray the 9 Heavens Palace? Shangguan Fenglan said angrily. Betray? That's too serious. I just don't want to be with people like you. Qin Feiyang said lightly. Shangguan Fenglan was very angry, but also helpless. She sighed. Okay, I'll take you to the Vice Palace Master's study, but you only have an hour, and this matter, not only must you hide it from the Great Elder, you can't even tell Mu Tianyang and the others. An hour? Qin Feiyang frowned. Was that enough time? However, it was better than not being able to enter. Okay. Qin Feiyang nodded. Shangguan Fenglan smiled helplessly, flew into the air and said, Come with me. Qin Feiyang turned and followed. I'm very puzzled. Why are you so determined to enter the Vice Palace Master's study? Shangguan Fenglan asked suspiciously. Qin Feiyang said, I've said it before, it's purely out of curiosity. It seems that you won't answer honestly. Shangguan Fenglan shook her head. Qin Feiyang asked, Where is the Great Elder now? Shangguan Fenglan said, He looks a little upset. He probably went somewhere to relax. Qin Feiyang curiously asked, Then, what's your plan for Feng Zihan? It's not confirmed yet. Shangguan Fenglan shook her head. Qin Feiyang said, It should be very difficult to decide. I really can't hide anything from you. Indeed. Although Feng Zihan is Feng Yuan's granddaughter, this matter has nothing to do with her directly. Moreover, she's very talented. It would be a pity to expel her from 9 Heaven Palace. But if she continues to stay in 9 Heaven Palace, we won't be at ease. After all, her family basically died in 9 Heaven Palace. We're worried that she won't be able to let go of this hatred and secretly do something harmful to 9 Heaven Palace. Shangguan Fenglan sighed. This is indeed a difficult problem. Qin Feiyang nodded. If he was the ruler of 9 Heaven Palace, He also wouldn't be willing to expel a talent like Feng Zihan. Shangguan Fenglan pondered for a while and suddenly said, I heard my sister say that you're going to Sky Dragon Sea? Why did this woman say everything? Qin Feiyang said angrily. Shangguan Fenglan said, Don't blame my sister. I forced her to say it. Please, can you find a better excuse? If your sister didn't mention it first, would you know that we're going to Sky Dragon Sea? If you didn't know, would you force her to say it? Qin Feiyang said. Shangguan Fenglan said, Then why are you going to Sky Dragon Sea? Qin Feiyang said, It's Mu Tianyang's idea to Feng Yuan, saying that he can get rid of us in Sky Dragon Sea. Are you crazy? What kind of idea is this? Do you know how dangerous Sky Dragon Sea is? When you really enter Sky Dragon Sea, there's no need for Feng Yuan to do anything. The sea beasts inside can kill you 1,000 times over. Shangguan Fenglan said angrily. Didn't we not go? Moreover, now that Feng Yuan is dead, there's no need to go. Qin Feiyang said. It's best not to go. If you go, you have to prepare a coffin for yourself in advance. Shangguan Fenglan said. Qin Feiyang's eyes flickered. Not only was the deputy pavilion master in awe of Sky Dragon Sea, but even Shangguan Fenglan was so wary. It seemed that this place was really not a good place. Chapter 2163. About half an hour later, Qin Feiyang followed Shangguan Fenglan into the deepest part of the mountain. The mountains here were majestic and magnificent. Ancient trees towered into the sky, green and glistening. In the mountains, fierce beasts were everywhere. The aura of each fierce beast was no less than that of a divine lord. Although the scenery was pleasant, it was also a place that made people feel intimidated at first glance. After entering the mountain, they flew for about 100 breaths. 2 courtyards finally came into sight. The 2 courtyards were on the top of a giant mountain about thousands of feet high. One was on the east side of the mountain, and the other was on the west side of the mountain. The top of the mountain was also flattened by an axe. All kinds of flowers and trees were planted, full of vitality. The 2 landed on the top of the mountain. Qin Feiyang asked suspiciously, Why are there 2 courtyards? The owner of the east courtyard is the palace master, and the owner of the west courtyard is the vice palace master. They used to live here, Shangguan Fenglan said. I see. Qin Feiyang nodded in realization. In the center of the 2 courtyards, there was a 2-story attic with carved beams and painted pillars. It was extremely exquisite. However, whether it was the gate of the courtyard or the door of the attic, they were all closed. Shangguan Fenglan took Qin Feiyang to the gate of the west courtyard. The courtyard was very clean and tidy. It didn't look like a place where no one lived at all. Shangguan Fenglan said, Although the 2 palace masters are not here, I will personally come here every few days to clean the courtyard. Not here? Qin Feiyang was stunned. He already knew that the vice palace master was not in the 9th heaven palace. But the palace master was not in the 9th heaven palace, which was a little beyond his expectations. Shangguan Fenglan didn't explain much. She took out a fiery red token from her arms and then pressed it into the void. Buzz. A fiery red boundary immediately appeared in the void. The boundary covered the entire courtyard. There is actually a boundary protection? Qin Feiyang was shocked. Fortunately, he didn't sneak in, otherwise he would have been caught off guard. This boundary was personally set up by the vice palace master. In the entire northern region, there are no more than 10 people who have the ability to break this boundary, Shangguan Fenglan said. So strong? Qin Feiyang was shocked. Wang. The token in Shangguan Fenglan's hand emitted rays of divine light and merged with the barrier. Following closely, a door of light appeared. Go in. Shangguan Fenglan put away the token and took the lead to step into the barrier. Qin Feiyang followed closely behind. After the 2 of them entered, the barrier automatically healed and then disappeared into the void, as if it had never appeared. Is the palace master's courtyard also protected by a barrier? Qin Feiyang looked at the east courtyard and asked. Of course. The residences of the 2 palace masters naturally have to be well protected. Furthermore, there are only 2 tokens that can open these 2 barriers. One is with me, and the other is with the Great Elder. Shangguan Fenglan said. In that case, only you and the two palace masters are allowed to enter? Qin Feiyong said. Yes. Shangguan Fenglan nodded. She quickly walked to the front of the attic and gently pushed the door open. A large living room appeared in her sight. In the living room, there were neatly arranged tea tables and chairs made of mahogany. There were also some pleasing decorations hanging on the walls. It was exquisite, but not luxurious. The floor was spotless. The study of the deputy palace master is next to the bedroom on the second floor. Shangguan Fenglan pointed to the stairs on the second floor and then led Qin Feiyong to the second floor. There were a total of 3 rooms on the second floor: the bedroom, the cultivation room, and the study. Shangguan Fenglan stopped in front of the study and said, "You can go in, but you are not allowed to mess up the things inside. That is to say, you have to put them back where you took them." Understood. Qin Feiyong nodded. Shangguan Fenglan gently pushed the door open, and everything in the room suddenly appeared in front of Qin Feiyong's eyes. There was a row of bookshelves on all 4 sides of the study. On them, there were all kinds of books neatly arranged. In the center of the study, there was a mahogany desk and a chair. On the desk, there was a brush, ink, paper, and inkstone. The entire study, whether it was the floor, the bookshelves, or the table and chairs, was spotless. So many books? Qin Feiyong walked into the study and glanced at the bookshelves on all sides. There were at least thousands of books here. How could he find the historical books about the ancestors in half an hour? Moreover, he did not dare to ask Shangguan Fenglan, because once he asked, Shangguan Fenglan would definitely be suspicious. Shangguan Fenglan looked at Qin Feiyong and said, "I have basically read all the books here. What kind of books are you looking for? Shall I help you find them?" "No need, no need." Qin Feiyong waved his hand and smiled, saying, "I'm just looking around." As he said, he wandered around in front of the bookshelves, but his eyes were constantly searching for books about the ancestors. The books here were all-inclusive. For example, the resources of the fierce beasts, the information of the divine weapons, the information of the divine arts, the information of the major cities, the major forces, and the major families. Then there was the information of the major forbidden areas of the northern region, the famous mountains, and scenic spots. In short, there was everything. It was no exaggeration to say. As long as he finished reading the books here, he would basically know the situation of the entire northern region like the back of his hand. However, when he finished reading all the books, he did not see the 3 words Qinbatian on the cover. "Is it not here?" Qin Feiyong murmured. Or was it that the information of the ancestors was not recorded separately? He originally thought that the information about the ancestors might be recorded separately in a historical book, just like a biography of a famous person. In this way, the name of the ancestors would inevitably be on the cover of the book. But now it seemed that this was not the case. But if the information of the ancestors was mixed with other information, then the time was not enough, because he had to open the book one by one and look for it page by page. Wait. Suddenly, Qin Feiyong frowned again, thinking back to this period of time. No matter who he asked, they all said that the ancestors were a taboo in the Ninth Heaven Palace. Since it was a taboo, it must be very important. Then the information about the ancestors was very likely to be recorded separately. But why was there no information on the bookshelves? Qin Feiyong was full of doubts, wandering in front of the bookshelves while scanning the books. Suddenly, he glanced at the desk. Under the desk, there were 3 drawers. The drawers were all closed. Qin Feiyong's heart skipped a beat. Could it be in those 3 drawers? But the drawers were the most important places. Shangguan Fenglan would definitely not let him open them. No, I have to think of a way to get Shangguan Fenglan away. Qin Feiyong began to think. Suddenly, he came up with a plan, casually took out a book from the bookshelf, casually flipped through it for a while, then looked at Shangguan Fenglan and said with a smile, "I'm a little thirsty, Palace Master. Can I trouble you to make a pot of tea for me?" Shangguan Fenglan was stunned, as if she had heard the biggest joke in the world, and said, "You want me to make tea for you? How much face do you have?" Qin Feiyong said aggrievely, "It's just making tea. Is there a need to do this? It's really troublesome." Shangguan Fenglan glared at Qin Feiyong, turned around, and walked out. Qin Feiyong's eyes flashed, quickly put the book in his hand back on the bookshelf, then ran to the desk and opened the first drawer. In this drawer, there were only a few insignificant materials. Then, he opened the second drawer. There were also some materials in it that had nothing to do with him. Then, he opened the third drawer. When he opened the drawer, he looked stunned. There was an iron box in the drawer. The iron block was very thin, but it was very wide and long, just the same size as the book. Qin Feiyang suspiciously took out the iron box, put it on the desk, and then opened the iron box. A slightly yellowed ancient book appeared in front of him. On the cover, there were 3 big words. Qin Batian. I finally found it. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed. Tada! Suddenly, a burst of footsteps sounded. How come it's so fast? Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows. How long had it been? Was it done? Originally, he wanted to take a good look, but now, he definitely couldn't. The footsteps were getting closer and closer. What to do? Qin Feiyang was burning with anxiety. It was not easy to find the historical book about the ancestor. Just take it away. In the end, he made up his mind, simply took out the historical book, put it into the cosmos ring, then quickly closed the iron box and put it back in the drawer. After closing the drawer, he immediately ran back to his previous position, took a book from the bookshelf, opened the cover, lowered his head, and pretended to read. Finally, Shangguan Fenglan entered the study, holding a transparent glass in her hand, which was full of water. Qin Feiyang looked up and said suspiciously, "Why is it water?" No wonder it was so fast. There was no tea at all. Shangguan Fenglan put it on the desk and said indifferently, "I have never served a man like this in my life. Drink it or not." Drink, drink, drink. Qin Feiyang nodded repeatedly, closed the book, put it back on the bookshelf, then stepped forward, took the cup, and drank. Soon, Qin Feiyang drank the full cup of water, wiped his mouth, and said with a smile, "Now I feel better. Hurry up." Shangguan Fenglan glared at Qin Feiyang fiercely. Qin Feiyang didn't care at all. He walked to the bookshelf, took out a few books at random, and flipped through them for a while. Seeing that Shangguan Fenglan had no intention of leaving, he shook his head disinterestedly and said, "There are no books worth reading here." Since Shangguan Fenglan didn't leave the study, he could only take the historical book out. As for how to return it, he would slowly think of a way. Shangguan Fenglan was stunned. Every single one of the books here was priceless. Yet, they were not even worth a look. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and said, let's go. It's a waste of time." Looking at Qin Feiyang's arrogant look, Shangguan Fenglan wanted to kick him. After Qin Feiyang left the study, Shangguan Fenglan glanced at the bookshelf and didn't suspect anything. Then she grabbed the glass cup, turned around, and walked out of the study, closing the door. After leaving the courtyard, the two didn't talk much and went back the way they came. But when they arrived at Lotus Lake, a woman in black greeted them, her face full of anxiety. It was Wang Yun. "What's wrong?" Shangguan Fenglan looked at her suspiciously. Wang Yun shouted, "Temple Master, something bad has happened. The treasure pavilion has attacked our Jiutian palace." "What?" Shangguan Fenglan's face suddenly changed. Qin Feiyang was also shocked. This speed was too fast. He looked at Wang Yun and said, "They have already killed their way to Jiutian Palace?" Chapter 2164. Attack Nine Heavens Palace? Wang Yun stared at Qin Feiyang in a daze. Qin Feiyang said, "Didn't you say they attacked our Nine Heavens Palace?" "Yes, but I didn't say they attacked our Nine Heavens Palace," Wang Yun said. Qin Feiyang was dumbfounded, speechless. Since they didn't attack, how did they attack our Nine Heavens Palace? Wang Yun said solemnly, "It's more serious than attacking our Nine Heavens Palace directly." "What do you mean?" Qin Feiyang was puzzled. Shangguan Fenglan also looked at Wang Yun suspiciously. Wang Yun said, "Not long ago, the Treasure Pavilion's pavilion master personally issued an order to ban our Nine Heavens Palace." "Ban Nine Heavens Palace?" Shangguan Fenglan's eyes trembled. "Yes, the target of the ban is not only us, but also all the disciples. In other words, from now on, Our Nine Heavens Palace can't even enter the treasure pavilion's door. And I received news that all the disciples who were auctioning or trading in the treasure pavilion were chased out. Wang Yun said. Qin Feiyang asked, is it only Sky Dragon City's treasure pavilion or the entire North region's treasure pavilion? Wang Yun said, the treasure pavilion's pavilion master personally issued an order, so naturally it's the entire North region's treasure pavilion. Then this matter is serious. Qin Feiyang said in a low voice, yes. Although our Nine Heavens Palace has a lot of resources, other than the soul vein, nothing else can compare to the treasure pavilion, especially herbs and divine crystals. More than half of the North region's herbs and divine crystals are controlled by the treasure pavilion. Therefore, this ban is undoubtedly a disaster for our Nine Heavens Palace, Wang Yun said with a worried face. Shangguan Fenglan asked, does Grand Elder know about this? Wang Yun said, the entire Nine Heavens Palace is in an uproar now. It's hard for Grand Elder not to know. Shangguan Fenglan sighed. It seems like the treasure pavilion is really angry this time. Wang Yun said again, there's one more important thing. There's more? Qin Feiyang and Shangguan Fenglan looked at each other. The pavilion master of the treasure pavilion issued 2 orders. The first order is to ban our Nine Heavens Palace. As for the second order, he disdained to fight with our Nine Heavens Palace for the resources of the northern region at all costs. Wang Yun said. Shangguan Fenglan's face sank. He actually gave such an order. All along, the treasure pavilion had focused on doing business and had never competed with Nine Heaven Palace for resources, unless a great treasure appeared. It was just like the rank 9 soul line that was born in the heavenly dragon sea back then. After all, who wouldn't be moved by such a supreme treasure? The treasure pavilion naturally wouldn't hand it over to Nine Heavens Palace. However, this was extremely rare. Under normal circumstances, the treasure pavilion would give way to Nine Heavens Palace. This was because the treasure pavilion's motto had always been to value harmony, and harmony led to wealth. If the treasure hall had started fighting with Nine Heavens Palace for territory and resources, Nine Heavens Palace wouldn't have been able to develop to its current state. Therefore, it was not an exaggeration to say that the treasure pavilion had created the Nine Heavens Palace. Originally, everything had been in balance. The 2 forces didn't interfere with each other's business. But now, this balance was broken, and the development of Nine Heavens Palace would definitely be hindered in the future. Moreover, although it seemed that Nine Heavens Palace had the advantage in numbers, in a real fight, Nine Heavens Palace couldn't win against the treasure pavilion. Because in Nine Heavens Palace only occupied one place, the Heavenly Dragon Mountain Range. And the treasure pavilion's forces were spread throughout the major cities of the northern region. Therefore, if the treasure pavilion really wanted to fight for resources, Nine Heavens Palace wouldn't be able to compete. Palace Master, this matter has already caused all the disciples of Nine Heavens Palace to panic. We must think of a way. Wang Yun said worriedly. Shangguan Fenglan pondered for a moment, then waved her hand and said, take some people to calm them down first. I'll think about it. Yes. Wang Yun respectfully replied, then turned and quickly left. Sigh. Qin Feiyang shook his head and sighed. He looked at Shangguan Fenglan and said, don't try to be brave in this matter. The one who started the trouble must be untied. The reason the treasure pavilion did this was all because of First Elder. Therefore, First Elder has to personally take action. I know, but it's impossible for the Great Elder to put down his face and ask for peace with the treasure pavilion. Shangguan Fenglan rubbed her forehead. For the survival and development of Nine Heavens Palace, he must ask for peace. Unless he's no longer the Great Elder of Nine Heavens Palace, Qin Feiyang said. Shangguan Fenglan's face changed and hurriedly said, you can't say this. This is the truth. Isn't all of this caused by him? Palace Master, don't blame me for saying this. If he doesn't deal with this matter as soon as possible, he won't be able to keep his position as the Great Elder of Nine Heavens Palace. Because if this continues, the situation will become more and more serious. When the Vice Palace Master comes back and sees Nine Heavens Palace like this, will he let the Great Elder off easily? Qin Feiyang sneered. Shangguan Fenglan's heart sank. Looking at Qin Feiyang, why do I feel that you're gloating? To be honest, I'm just gloating a little. In the past, I still respected him, but when I saw his attitude towards the Vice Palace Master, I was really disappointed. Qin Feiyong shook his head. Shangguan Fenglan said, "The pain of losing a son is not something you can understand." Yes, the pain of losing a son is hard for anyone to bear. But what does this have to do with the Vice Palace Master? It's obviously Feng Yuan's fault. But why does he have to drag the Vice Palace Master into this? In fact, he just can't put down his face and doesn't want to admit his mistakes, and doesn't want others to talk about him behind his back. In a word, he's selfish. Qin Feiyong mercilessly scolded. Sigh. Shangguan Fenglan sighed deeply. She wanted to refute Qin Feiyong, but she couldn't find a reason to. As the great elder of Nine Heavens Palace, one of the strongest existences in the northern region, if this is all he has, then it's too laughable. Forget it. I'm just a disciple, and my words carry little weight. No matter what I say, it's useless. Do as you see fit. With that, Qin Feiyong stood up. Wait. Shangguan Fenglan hurriedly called out to him. What's wrong? Qin Feiyong turned back and looked at Shangguan Fenglan in confusion. Shangguan Fenglan said, You're so close to the Vice Palace Master. Why don't you go and talk to him? Me? Temple Master, you're joking. How can I, a disciple, do such a big thing? Let's talk about it later. You and Shangguan Xiu are sisters. Why don't you go? As the saying goes, the one who tied the bell should untie it. It's useless even if you and I go. Qin Feiyong shook his head and didn't stay any longer. He tore through the air like lightning. Sigh. Shangguan Fenglan let out a long sigh, her face full of worry. What's going on? Why did the Treasure Pavilion ban us? Didn't the Vice Palace Master of the Treasure Pavilion come to our Empyrean Palace not long ago? Can anyone tell us what's going on? The disciples of Empyrean Palace were in an uproar. The disciples of the 10 sacred peaks also gathered together and discussed animatedly. Look, it's Jiang Haoyin. Junior brother Jiang, did you receive the news that the Treasure Pavilion banned us? Not long ago, you went to the conference hall with Madman and the others. The Vice Palace Master also seemed to have gone to the conference hall. What happened at that time? Why did the Treasure Pavilion ban our Empyrean Palace as soon as the Vice Palace Master returned? Seeing Qin Feiyong appear, a group of disciples of the Saint Peaks immediately surrounded him. I do know. Qin Feiyong nodded. Then tell us quickly, is it a temporary ban or a permanent ban? Everyone asked. It's not convenient for me to disclose this matter. But don't worry, I believe someone will come out soon and announce the reason for this matter. Everyone, please step aside. Qin Feiyong smiled. Everyone retreated to the side helplessly. Qin Feiyong went straight back to his cave abode. Looking at the closed door of the cave abode, everyone's face was filled with disappointment. Damn it, who did this? But suddenly, in the first cave abode, a roar filled with killing intent rang out. The owner of this roar was Qin Feiyong. Everyone looked at the first cave abode again. What's going on? With a loud bang, the cave abode's stone door shattered. Qin Feiyong rushed out and stared at the crowd. Who entered my cave abode before? No one has entered. What's wrong? Everyone was suspicious. Qin Feiyong scanned the crowd, his killing intent like a blood-red flame. Everyone present had a higher cultivation than Qin Feiyong. But under this killing intent, they felt as if they had fallen into an abyss. Their bodies and minds were cold. Junior brother Jiang, what's wrong with you? A young woman who was a perfected divine lord asked. Qin Feiyong didn't say a word. He turned around and returned to the cave abode. Looking at the floor of the living room, his face was gloomy to the extreme. The people outside curiously gathered at the entrance of the cave abode to take a look. They didn't know if they didn't see, but they were shocked when they saw it. On the floor of the living room, there were 2 bloody heads. Junior brother Jiang, what's going on? More than a dozen young men and women entered the cave abode and stood beside Qin Feiyong. They were surprised. Qin Feiyong looked at the 2 heads gloomily. They were a man and a woman, and they were both his acquaintances. The man was Gu Yong, who had left Nine Heavens Palace not long ago. The woman was Gao Xiaowei. Both of them died with their eyes open, filled with despair and fear before death. And their heads were still bleeding. Obviously, the two of them hadn't died for long. But who killed them? And why did they send their heads to his cave abode? And Gu Yong, I haven't seen that woman before. That's not the point. The point is, why are their heads in Jiang Haoyin's cave abode? Could it be that Jiang Haoyin did it? Impossible. We all saw it with our own eyes before. He just came back. Could it be that someone wants to frame him again? The outside of the cave abode was also crowded with people discussing. Why? Why be so cruel? Qin Feiyang clenched his hands tightly and walked step by step to Gao Shui's head. In the morning at the seaside of the Sky Dragon Sea, he had pulled Gao Shui back from the hands of death. It was also not easy to make her give up the idea of committing suicide. And he also promised that he would be her big brother from now on. But now, there was only a head left. Qin Feiyang squatted on the ground and muttered, "Shui, I haven't had the time to fulfill my duty as a big brother. How did you die?" What? She is actually Jiang Haoyin's sister? That's not right. Isn't Jiang Haoyin's sister Jiang Fire Lotus? Everyone was surprised. I'm sorry. It's all Big Brother's fault. It's Big Brother who harmed you. Tell Big Brother. Who killed you? Big Brother will definitely cut him into 1,000 pieces and let him pay with his blood. Qin Feiyang roared, his eyes bloodshot. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.